welcome to episode 3 of Barbarian Banter. Today we have a very special guest with us. Today I'm joined by my co-host, Dane Miller-Haas.
Nice to see you guys. We are back for the third episode. A very special episode indeed. Good things always come in threes.
Absolutely. And we're also joined today by our good friend, Harry Miller.
There he is.
In the flesh.
What's up, dudes?
Harry, you are easily the most requested guest, not only on this podcast, but just in general. People are like, you should do something with Harry Miller. I don't care what it is, just do something.
That's because we talk about the cool stuff. We talk about the stuff people should talk more about.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that I think is so, pertinent to what's going on with this sort of, digital renaissance. I noticed myself when I, was going to college, for example, obviously everybody's, taking STEM classes. They want to get degrees in either business or something useful. And everybody was like, why the fuck are you getting a degree in the humanities, like philosophy, history? Nobody gives a shit about that. It doesn't actually matter anymore. And I think that that's exactly why it still matters. So is that kind of the same direction that you've taken on your sort of content, why you post the stuff you post?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the stuff that I think is important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I know you guys talk a lot about this, about, romanticizing your life and mythologizing your life, but I believe, there's something, I think I read Joseph Campbell, he talks about innate release mechanisms, IRMs, and there are certain genetic things, like if a baby chick hatches out of an egg, it can see a cardboard cutout of a hawk, and it knows exactly what to do when it sees a predator.
Right.
And there's something innately grooved into this thing's psyche that it knows how to operate as a chicken.
Yeah.
And I think, that chicken has a small chicken brain. As humans, we develop this huge, beyond our limbic system and beyond our reptilian hindbrain, we develop this huge frontal cortex, which is great for this higher level thought. But then all of this head voice starts to suffocate the animal brain. And I think, and I think a lot of other mythologists agree with it, but mythology serves to take those symbols of the predator hawk or the dragon or the princess, or all of these symbols that would make brain dead human know exactly what to do.
Mm-hmm.
The myth serves to release that, so we know what to do with ourselves.
Interesting.
And that's how I feel about myth, and especially in the modern day where the symbols feel more latent, and there's not as much initiation. We don't really talk about these myths anymore, and they're treated as fairy tales, whereas
100%.
And that's what's sort of hard is sometimes I'll reference a piece of fiction or a piece of myth or a piece of literature, and people will come and be like, well, that's not real, right? But technically the economy's not real.
Yeah.
I think it really challenges the definition of real, how we talk about mythology and
capital
ourselves
T
as well.
truth. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue, and dude, somebody says that, fiction speaks truth without facts. Science and all that stuff is concerned purely with facts.
Right.
And it ends up being faker than fiction.
Yeah.
But fiction and myth are realer than science itself, but it's purely made up. Somebody can find that quote somewhere, but that's how I feel about myth. It's realer than real, and it reveals to us all the things that, in the year 2026, we think we're much more sophisticated than, but I don't think we are.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. That's literally exactly what I tell people when I explain why I'm interested in these things is the collection of stories, whether it's a story through our shared history, whether it's a story shared through mythology, shared cultural stories, they're all stories. And the stories corroborate each other and they arrive at something that resembles absolute truth, or the closest thing that we can get to objective truth. I think God is the culmination of all of our stories and our collective understanding of things. And ultimately, I want to know God. That's the reason that I do all these things. And so that's why I think history is important, philosophy, mythology, all those things. And I'm glad that people, I think, are kind of catching on to not only how important those things are, but how cool they are too. Like, I think they're finding something in themselves that was dead for a long time. I
Yeah.
know for myself, that was the reason that I got into like philosophy in the first place. Of all places, it was watching Jordan Peterson lectures. And there was just something about the way that he would connect like good and evil to Pinocchio or Snow White or some shit that I was like, that that's like my favorite thing. That calls to my soul. I want to be able to find those patterns and recognize symbols and stuff. And then I started noticing the reason I resonated with it was because like my mind, instead of like an internal monologue, whatever, like I feel like I think in symbols. Like I feel like when I'm thinking of a video, for example, I don't think of the words that I'm gonna say or the exact like narrative flow. I just think of how the symbols connect with each other,
Yeah.
and then I have to find the words to be able to connect those ideas. And I feel like the reason that I love your content and Dane's content too is because I feel like you guys are doing the same thing. So it kind of just makes me feel like I'm not alone, which I love it.
I mean, the whole reason I kind of got into romanticizing things and being fascinated with mythology is because I was always an overthinker.
Mm,
Analysis paralysis, always trying to think, taking all this data, what is like the correct thing to do? And I would never do anything. And
mm,
I found that I call it being rationally irrational by using symbols and adding this kind of like heroic mythic meaning to everyday things, I am able to do so much more. I'm able to make good decisions much quicker and much more confidently, and it's totally changed my life. And that's why I think it's funny when people say like, oh, that's not real, oh, it's metaphysical bullshit, whatever. It's definitely changed my life. And I think the human brain is built to use its intuition, its subconscious. We're not meant to be purely rational creatures. And
yeah.
by just limiting ourselves to that, we're losing a lot of what makes us human. So,
Well, it's even kind of like what Harry said earlier about, the fact that the myths that we create, the stories that we tell ourselves are in a way meant to sort of like bypass that logical thing that like we need to have like evidence and hard facts about something, because if you put it in story form, then it's like the images, like you said, that your monkey reptilian brain would just immediately understand. Now you can make sense of those. You can like bypass that instinctual, or you can bypass the rational urge to bypass the instinctual and make it something that's like useful again. um yeah, I love that. I think that that's exactly what we're doing. um I wanted to ask, because Harry, you said that you had some thoughts on the Arthurian legend and the connection to the Scythians. I was really curious because that's a callback to episode 1. So
Yes.
let's dive into that.
No, yes, I have a so I was originally going to make this like a 3-part series, and so I have a script written
Hmm.
that I would love to share. If it's because it ties into a lot of it ends with Arthur and Arturus and the Scythians and the Sarmatians. And so I would love to, because I would argue that's my weakest part. I would say I'm really strong with like the flood stuff and the Mediterranean stuff. So I would love to get us all up to speed on, yeah, and then compare.
Dude, let's do it.
Can
Absolutely.
I go? All right. I'll
Please.
if you grant me a little 10-minute stretch here. Okay.
It's all you.
So originally this would be like a real format in which I'm like showcasing some quotations to corroborate this as I say it. For ones in particular, I have a couple like jotted down that I'll explicitly say,
Mhm.
but yeah, if anybody, you can find these things on the internet. I love the internet, you know.
It's great.
So
It really
I
is.
love the way that you put on evidence on the screen as you talk. I always pause your frames to get a quotation or get something
Same.
to explore more. It's a very good
honestly,
way to get information on the screen without while keeping
yeah.
your flow. I think
Yeah,
it's
totally.
I do that because it's like there's nothing I hate more than because I hate how with the reel you have to make it less than 3 minutes because you really
Oh
can't
my God.
give the full nuance.
yes.
And then you've got somebody commenting like
Yes.
Well, actually, did you consider this? And so anticipating that somebody's gonna say that, I'd much rather just like look at the fucking screen, bro. It's
Yeah.
yeah, I did anticipate that. So,
You'll still
but
get those comments, unfortunately. It's so
yeah,
fucking, but
it
yeah.
never ends. Okay, but
Also,
we'll start.
I'm editing this too, so if you
Uh-huh.
want to send me anything that I'm gonna be
Oh, cool, cool,
throwing
cool,
on the screen, more than
cool,
happy to. So do your
cool,
thing, flow.
cool. So this starts. The first part is called "In the Mediterranean." How are Hercules, Odysseus, King Arthur, leprechauns, Asgard, and Atlantis all related? To explain, we must first go back to ancient Egypt. The era is roughly 1200 BC, around the time of the Trojan War. The Bronze Age is coming to an end, and with it, many groups are migrating throughout the Mediterranean as empires collapse all around. The Hittites and the Middle Assyrians, the Minoans of Crete, and the Mycenaeans as well. All while an unknown confederation of marauders, known simply as the Sea People, raid the Levant, Anatolia, and the Maghreb. And here's where things start to get eerie. This era, 15th to 13th century BC, also serves as a plausible time for the Exodus in which the 12 tribes of Israel escaped Egypt under the leadership of Moses, who was initiated in the Egyptian mysteries, to slowly wander back to the land of Canaan. We will focus our attention on two tribes in particular, primarily the tribe of Dan and later that of Asher, but first Dan. It is speculated that, either along the journey across Sinai or when they reached Canaan itself, some special members of the tribe of Dan broke off to fare the seas and create new colonies. Judges 5:17, Joshua 19:47, and Judges 18:1 say, respectively, and why did Dan remain in ships? Asher continued on the seashore and abode in his breeches. Further, the coast of the children of Dan went out too little for them, and in those days there was no king in Israel, and in those days the tribe of the Danites sought them an inheritance to dwell in. Therefore, Dan was a seafaring people who was looking for a place to call home, and some members, perhaps leaving Egypt, Canaan, or anywhere in between, took to the sea. This connects with other sources. Egyptian records like Medinet Habu inscriptions under the reign of Ramses III identify that the Sea Peoples were composed of many groups, the Peles or Philistines, the Shekelesh or Sicilians perhaps, and others, but also the Denian or Danuna. Across both the Iliad and Odyssey, Homer also references this group among two other ethnonyms for the Greeks, the Argioi or Argives and Achaoi or Achaeans, but also the Danaoi or Dananns. Diomedes, son of Tydeus, strives with the Dananns. Hector fought against them, yet could not prevail. They rested on the shores of Troy, and Patroclus roused them. The opening lines of some versions of the Odyssey, older versions, even identify Ulysses, Odysseus himself, as man of the Danann. And who were the Danann, according to some of Greece's greatest? They were the progeny of their patriarch Danaus, son of Bela, who, according to Apollodorus and Herodotus, fled Egypt and came to Argos. Who is it said also hailed from Argos? Hercules himself, or his mortal parents at least. Further, there is another interesting coincidence that Heracles, meaning glory of Hera, sounds just like the Hebrew word for merchants, Haroklim. However, this does seem to be just a coincidence. Yet there are many other comparisons between the Hercules, the Danaoi, and the tribe of Dan which do stand. For example, in the Hebrew tradition, who is also said to be the mother of Dan, per Genesis 33 through 6, if not a woman named Bilhah, just as Bela was the mother of Danaus? And is it not interesting, then, that aside from Hercules, one of the strongest characters in ancient myth, Samson, whose name means like the sun, just like Hercules was similarly compared to the sun, is also of the tribe of Dan, and that these two characters, Samson and Hercules, both famously slay a lion with their bare hands, press pillars apart, and ultimately succumb to the backstabbing seduction of women named Delilah and Danira, respectively, whose names are practically homophones, given that nasalization can cause L's to sound like N's and that L and R are allophones and both liquid consonants, hence the coexistence of words like ramen versus lo mein. Therefore, over time and many leagues of seafaring, these consonants could have easily morphed into one another, and it seems Delilah and Danira are practically the same person along with Samson and Hercules. Or at the very least, they are memories of a shared ancestor. Most curious is it not, as you can see, the many myths here intertwine deeply, but let us now move our sights towards Britannia. So that's the first part. So, recap, this Dan patriarch, a son of a woman named like Bel or Billa, leaving Egypt, reports say moving to Argos, and Hercules was from Argos. The term Danaoi, the people of Dan, is used by Homer in the Odyssey and the Iliad. And so yeah, there's this interesting idea of a Danite seafaring people in the Mediterranean during the end of the Bronze Age. So that's sort of the big idea right there.
Love it. I was
I'll keep.
showing Dane on screen when you were
Uh-huh.
saying that. I was like, I hope he makes the Hercules Samson connection. He's got to, because that
Yeah.
was something that like occurred to me. You sent me a video. I can't remember who it was or what
Yeah.
it was, but you sent me a video a long time ago talking about Tribe of Dan.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
like first thing that I thought of was the Hercules Samson connection when I was thinking about
Yeah.
the ancient Greeks and the sea peoples, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
The Delilah Danira connection and the language,
Interesting.
it's like it's just solidifying. It's just like
Yeah.
perfect. It's the cherry on top.
Yeah, and especially the myth of like the pillars of Hercules at the Strait of Gibraltar, and then
Yeah.
Samson dying by pressing pillars apart.
Yes.
Very interesting.
It's
The
one of those
the
things you can literally find photos online and you're actually not even sure which myth you're looking at.
Right, right. No, it's
Yeah.
very. And then this is gets me into the idea of Atlantis.
Hmm.
But I believe that these may be the Greek myth and the Hebrew myth. I don't think are they're the same thing, but remnants of a common ancestor, which I'll get to near the end,
Interesting.
which I think is
Please,
Atlantean in nature, Atlantis in nature.
let's
But
go.
yeah, so now we're looking at, so now this chapter is called In the Land of Erin. So now we're going to talk about Ireland and leprechauns and stuff. So
Based.
based. We've already discussed Hercules in Egypt during the Bronze Age collapse. Let us now focus on Europe at that time. The Phoenicians of the Mediterranean made contact with the British Isles as early as the second millennium BC, 1000 BC, so still in that time frame. As corroborated by archaeological finds and Herodotus himself, a mercantile relationship arose in which the sailors traded the locals of modern-day Cornwall for their vast stores of tin, a resource which was scarce in the Near East. This is why Herodotus called the land from the extreme west the Cassiterides, meaning tin islands. This happens to coincide with mythical accounts from the Labor Gabella Erin, the Irish Book of Invasions, which details a group called the Tuatha De Danann arriving during the fifth invasion of Ireland between 1500 and 10,000 BC, or 1500 and 1000 BC, or roughly between the Exodus and the reign of King David. And just as Billa/Bellis was the mother of Dan/Danaus, in the Mediterranean myths, in Welsh mythology, Beli appears as the consort of Don. In fact, Diodorus refers to that same area of Cornwall as Belerium. And millennia later, the 1320 Declaration of Arbroath would declare that Scottish heritage derived from the Greater Scythia by way of the Tyrrhenian Sea and the Pillars of Hercules. This sea is beside Sardinia, the Tyrrhenian Sea, a hypothesized land of the Danes, Sardinia, which was said to have been founded by Sardus, son of Hercules, whom we have already discussed, but it must be a coincidence, and there will be more on Scythia later. For the meantime, let us focus on the British Isles. In the Irish myth, the Dan figure takes on the feminine motherly role in totality, as Tuatha De Danann translates to people of the goddess Danu. These people were described as bright beings who brought law and order to the land, along with magic, arts, druidism, and prophecy. The word Dan in Hebrew means judge, similarly, and they were often represented by the symbol of the scales. Further, the Tuatha De Danann were associated with the caduceus, the icon of the snake wrapped around the rod, a popular Hermetic image evocative of not only the Egyptian mysteries, but also the tale of initiated Moses turning his staff into a snake before the burning bush of Jehovah. Further, Genesis 49:17 says that Dan shall be a serpent who will find the path. This will be, I think, prevalent in like Scythian Draco imagery. Lastly, the Tuatha De Danann were also associated in legend with stone mounds, a fashion still recognizable in the cairn culture of Ireland today. The Danites had a similar practice. Tel Dan, or Tel El Qadi in Arabic, meaning Mound of the Judge, was one of the earliest cities of the Middle East, and it is said there stood a monumental stone structure some 6.5 meters wide at the heart of the city. Earlier, I clarified that Tuatha De Danann arrived during the fifth invasion. I said this because it was the sixth invasion by the Gaelic Celts, Visigothic settlers who had left Hispania to become the modern-day Irish, who sent the mythical hosts into hiding. In reference to the Celts, you may see them called Milesians as well, named after their mythical founder, Mil Hispaniae, meaning soldier of Spain, because they came from the Iberian Peninsula. That'll also be important later. Yes, it was this conquest by the Gaelic people that prompted the Tuatha De Danann to seek refuge beneath the ground, and it was this disappearance of formerly ethereal founders which proved to be the basis for such fantastical Irish folklore about fairies, elves, and fae. After being defeated by the Milesians, the Tuatha retreated into the hills and mounds, or Aishi, a word which literally described the people of these underground dwellings, but eventually came to refer to the mythical fairy group of Irish folklore as a whole, the Aishi. AIS Sidhe. That'll be an important word later. These tiny but wise subterranean dwarf creatures provided the basis for the classic character of the leprechaun, and this mythological ecosystem would provide the basis for all fantasy tropes that would follow, whether that be Tolkien's elves, dwarves, orcs, and Numenorians, or the Altimer and the Falmer of Skyrim, or even H.G. Wells' Eloi and Morlock and his sci-fi classic The Time Machine. But perhaps the most interesting thread of clues comes in the names potentially left behind by the Danites as they moved north through Europe. In this case, let us consider another later migration method, not through maritime means at the start of the 2nd millennium BC, but from the Caucasus and through the Crimea during the heyday of the Assyrian Empire. This is a fateful group, as you will see, known as the Scythians, for their nomadic roving would define the course of late human history, and the people themselves would become the ancient progenitors of modern Europe itself. So that concludes the late Bronze Age stuff. And so with that, you're looking at, so the Scots credit their existence to Scythians coming by way of the Tyrrhenian Sea Scythians coming from Sardinia through the Strait of Gibraltar. That's in the 1320 Declaration of Arbroath. And so I think that's really interesting. And yes, you're looking at the Tuatha De Danann, the people of Danu, the people of Dan, becoming these mythical figures among Irish folklore.
I love it.
So that's that.
The thing that is so fascinating to me is that you said that was from 1320, that reference of... See, the thing that people don't really understand, especially because I tried to kind of make this point in like my most recent YouTube video talking about the Scythians and the Goths, and it just does not get across to some people, is that like ethnonyms are not necessarily, they're Scythian, for example, was just like a term that was used for these people with, call them Aryan features from the Eurasian steppe. And so a lot of people, even up until the 1800s, they were saying that the Scythians are the most ancient of the peoples who are the Anglo-Saxons, the Celts, the Germans, the Vikings, all of these things. Bless
Excuse
you.
me.
And people get so bunched up about this because they're like, no, the Scythians, they were the Ironic peoples and they became this and this. And like everybody in the world wants to claim heritage to the Scythians. And I'm not saying that, it's us and not them sort of thing. But it's like, it's so, people want to take archaeology and like the historical narrative that we've been given at fundamental face value, and it cannot derivate. And they also treat Scythian like it's one specific culture, when at the time there were 50 tribes of Scythian peoples, and Scythian is really just a banner of an ethnonym, right?
Right. And that's what, that's, as I'll say that in this next point, where it's like, there are a couple of like writers who identify the Scythians as like a confederacy of tribes.
Exactly.
And that's why, because like the last thing you want to do is like unfairly claim or dismiss somebody else's claim for like an inheritance or something, like mythologically or whatever. And so I also try to like look very diligently to see like, is this a fair statement to say? But I think I'll cover it in this. But
amazing.
Just because I don't want to say that the Scythians are, like the lost tribes of Israel.
Sure.
But the argument that I think a lot of other writers make is that their migrations could have contained lost tribe whatever people. But also I think that regardless, they contain, and I'll make that assertion in this next part, that they don't have to be the same thing if they share a common history, which I think is like towards the great flood in nature, then they're going to be saying the same stories anyway. Yes. So it doesn't, just because like they have similar names, and you'll see that with this, doesn't mean that they're the same people. But now, so now we are in Europa. Now we're in Europe. And then this is where now we start talking about Norse mythology and Asgard. It gets us closer to Atlantis, and I also talk about King Arthur. So here we go. This is where it all comes together. Atlantis to King Arthur and everything in between. Quote, the Anglo-Saxons, Lowland Scotch, Normans, Danes, Norwegians, Swedes, Germans, Dutch, Belgians, Lombards, and Franks have all sprung from that great fountain of the human race, which we have distinguished by the terms Scythian, German, or Gothic, said Sharon Turner. It was recorded by the Aryan Persians of modern-day Iran that in 700 BC, the Scythians were in the Pontic-Caspian steppe of southern Russia, roaming the foothills of the Caucasus Mountains, which constitute modern Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. This would have been at the same time as the Aryan conquest of Samaria, the capital of northern Israel. As the prophets Isaiah, Micah, and Hosea foretold, King Sargon II would conclude the siege of the city in 722 BC and send the northern 10 tribes, excluding the Jerusalem-based Judah and Benjamin, into exile. These peoples would become known as the Lost Tribes. There is a simple fact. What occurred around this time was a migration of people from this greater area through the Crimea into Eastern Europe and beyond. This is undeniable. The question remains, however, and is still contested, did this movement of people include any of the lost tribes, particularly Dan and Asher? Some individuals, such as Blavatsky and Collins, claim that the term Scythian does include these northern Israelites, pointing out that Scythians were a confederation of tribes which may have allowed for genetically diverse groups, even one of Semitic origin, which simply refers to the descendants of Noah's son Shem, a note we will revisit in the next part. But let us list some more interesting coincidences. The Persians called the Scythians the Saka, or Sakai. Some assert this was in reference to the patriarchal figure Isaac himself, the son of Abraham. Next, let us recall the recurring name of Dan, which we already discussed in the Danaoi, Danuna, and Tuatha de Danann. Perhaps it is just a coincidence that the Donbass, Dnieper, Danube, Don, and ultimately Denmark all share the same Dan root of the water-faring Danites. However, a fair rebuttal to this hypothesis is the fact that the Proto-Indo-European root for flowing water is Den, or Danu, which is still obvious in the Sanskrit word Danu, meaning river. Danu is also the Hindu goddess, which would also be of like an Aryan root, that mythology in those words. Not to be confused with the Irish Danu, what's that about, who birthed the Danavas, a clan of Asuras found in the Vedic mythology, just like the children of Danu became the Aishi. So you have Danavas and Asuras, Danu and Aishi, so you see this Dan and Ash word, these sounds. And now things get even more jumbled up as we talk about the Danus, Asuras, and the Devas, for these two names also appear in the Norse Aesir and Vanir, Irish Aishi and Danu, and the Hebrew Asher and Dan. Recall, we said the Scythians, whoever they were, left the area of modern-day Azerbaijan. Do you see it yet or hear it yet? Azerbaijan, the land of the Aesir, Asaheim, Asgard, the land of Asher. Famed explorer and ethnographer Thor Heyerdahl, who did the Kon-Tiki expedition, believed this land near Azerbaijan was the basis for the mythical Asgard itself, home of the Aesir or Asher, and that Vanaheim would have been the home of the Vanir or Danites. Other writers generally agree and suggest Asia Minor, Asia, also of that Ash root, and the foothills of Noah's landing at Ararat as the homeland of the Nordics, which would have that Noah's landing would be in modern-day Azerbaijan, near there, in eastern Turkey, as the homeland of the Nordics. Lastly, when Snorre Sturluson speaks of Vanaheim, home of that god race of the Vanir, he references a river known as Tanais, or Vanakisel, which runs into the Black Sea. The Greeks called the Don River Tanais. This river would have been the first crossing out of Azerbaijan into the Caucasus region. As it pertains to the names of the Aesir and Vanir, the theory is that as the Scythians migrated through Europe and spoke of their distant homeland, perhaps it was possible that these two names, Asher and Dan, were mythologized into the Aesir and Vanir. On the latter matter of how Danann became Vanan, through the process of lenition in which a consonant sound softens, it is possible for a stop like B or D to become a fricative like V or Th, just as the Latin caballus became cavallus, Italian cavallus, and Germanic motor became English mother. Thus it is possible Danann became Vanan over the course of this migration. These groups were led by a chieftain named Odin or Wotan. Some suggest this word shares the same primordial root as the Hebrew Adonai, meaning Lord, and the Hellenized Adonis. After a war between the Aesir and Vanir, it was Odin, or a series of Odins, who united the clans and led them to the North Sea. After settling Germania and Scandinavia, they even went as far as the British Isles. Ethnic identities morph over time, especially among mobile nomads, and one group which became predominant among/over the Scythians was the Sarmatians. A contingent of 5,500 Sarmatian cavalry were sent by the Roman Empire to Britain in 175 AD to participate in the Marcomannic Wars?
Marcomannic, I think.
Marcomannic? Specifically, they were sent to Ribchester, where there was recently found an inscription recording the military presence of these people, and where the people strangely share haplogroup R1A, predominant amongst the Proto-Indo-Europeans who originate in Central Asia. At the same time, there was a military commander in Britain named Lucius Artorius Castus, who some scholars claim and many refute was the basis of the legend of King Arthur, claiming that this Artorius led the Scythian offshoot and provided later inspiration for the Arthur account, not first but most famously put together by Geoffrey of Monmouth, which contains Scythian motifs, the divine sword Excalibur, which is pulled from the earth. Herodotus 462, I have in parentheses, I believe he talks about the stone out of the earth motif among Scythians. The standard of the dragon present in the Draco windsock pattern, recall the Danann snake symbolism, and the hero who slays giants, duels with kin in the case of Mordred, conquers and expands dominion, and does not die, but withdraws one day to return again. To go further, some say that Arthur serves as the Welsh version of the Nordic Thor and Indo-Iranian Badtraz, all three of them being supernatural, weapon-wielding leaders and protectors of men who are magically born to slay giants and serpents, and who are said to return at the end times as the Rex Quandam Rexque Futurus, the once and future king. So that's in Europe. So that gets into your King Arthur stuff, and then I'll wrap it all up with the last chapter, the antediluvian conclusion. Everything I have said will be boastfully refuted by modern academia. King Arthur, Atlantis, Hercules, fairies, this very well may all be bullshit, I concede that, but it is up to you to decide. Which is more ridiculous, saying there is some grain of truth to all our shared myths, or that there is none at all? There is a perennial beef between Indo-European and Afro-Asiatic myth, which then extends into the modern argument between paganism and Abrahamism, respectively. However, let us consider some facts. The Greeks and Hebrews share a common Phoenician history. The Paleo-Hebrew alphabet comes from the same source as the Greek, and therefore Latin, and therefore English. The only reason the Hebrew script changed was because they adopted the lingua franca of Aramaic during the 6th century BC captivity in Babylon after the fall of Jerusalem, which is why their script became square Aramaic. Beyond the language, the Hebrews, descendants of Shem, which is where Shem is where you get the term Semitic, Shem, identified the Greeks as Japhetites, descendants of Japheth, who was a fellow son of Noah. More specifically, the Table of Nations, in the Table of Nations, Josephus and the Assyrians, among others, refer to the Ionians as Yawans, the people of Yawan, son of Japheth. So you see this similarity in the term Ionian and Yawan. In parallel, the Egyptians were referred to as Hamites, descendants of Ham, who was the third son of Noah. As a result, if we take these accounts seriously, then the Greek, Indo-Aryan, Norse, Hebrew, Chaldean, and Egyptian mythologies all would have been derived from the same patriarch who survived the Great Flood. The Hebrews call him Noah, the Babylonians Utnapishtim, the Greeks Deucalion, who later writers identified with Noah himself. I can find the quote on that. What we are left to consider here is that all of these myths come from a pre-flood civilization. What I refer to here is, of course, none other than Atlantis. If one believes that there was a migration out of the fallen Atlantis, and that the lost city itself was a remnant of Hyperborea, the place beyond the north, then it is possible to say that these seemingly opposing mythical structures actually derive from the same primordial source, but that the Indo-European branch retained its northern solar character, whereas the Afro-Asiatic ones of the Hebrews and Egyptians, and I guess the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, took on a more telluric and lunar quality, characterized by fertility and resurrection motifs, as both Evola and Gwenon declare. In fact, there are those who suggest that the name Hebrew itself, first given to Abraham in Genesis 14:13 as Ivri, apparently from the verb eber, meaning to cross over, refers to the Hyperborean root, hyper meaning beyond, Hebrew meaning the same. Did the survivors of the flood call themselves the ones from beyond, the Beyonders? Is this also a link to Iberia, named after the Eber River, whose root can be similarly traced back? Who knows? I just like to ask questions. Perhaps the concession is to say, not that modern Europeans are derived from the biblical tribe of Dan, but that all of us, the Danes, Danaoi, and Danites, derive from a people much older than any of us know. Let us not mistake a few remnants of the whole as each other, but look for the missing mythological megastructure which lays beneath the surface, or should I say the waves. Anyways, this is how it all ties together, but the threads run deeper, I'm sure of it. The truth is so much bigger than you think. I'll end with a quote from Helena Blavatsky, who was a comparative mythologist, and she came up with her own theosophical school. She says, quote, "The mysteries of the Jews were identical with those of the pagan Greeks, who took them from the Egyptians, who borrowed them in their turn from the Chaldeans, who got them from the Aryans, the Atlanteans, and so on." And so yeah, that's Atlantis, Arthur. That's it all. That's everything, man. There you go.
Let me throw in another thread for you. I don't have as
Bring
much direct evidence on hand, but I've been reading The Royal History of the Incas, which is written by a son of a conquistador and an Inca noblewoman, and he's recounting the history and myths of South America. And they do have a flood myth themselves. And there's also, I've seen some literature supposedly linking their worship of their sun god in their mythology to kind of Atlantean mythology. So there's potentially another link there. I think just the presence of a flood myth, especially we're talking South America, high in the mountains. It's not a place that floods easily.
Well, what's interesting is a lot of the like Mesoamericans and the South Americans. Sorry, I'm trying to close my screen a little bit. A lot of the South Americans have this idea of a pre-flood location called Aztlan, and a lot of other writers also identify the similarity of like that AZT, that Ost, to Atlantis and Atlas, and Atlas was sort of like a pre-flood figure, and a lot of like Plato talks about the way that Plato talks about these giant men in this land before the flood in Atlantis, and there's Nephilim in the Bible, and there's this idea of these very like godly men, like these immortal beings, procreating with women and creating these offspring creatures of like Nephilim, and like Sumerian myth, they're identified as like the Apkallu,
Anunnaki.
yeah, or like even like Greek Titans. Like there's this titanic element of these giant men who become corrupt, and a lot of people view that at root as, or even Adam. I don't remember who said this. It might be very fringe theory, but if I recall, he said that even like the sound Adam is very unique, like very singular among Hebrew, and that he thinks that even like Adam is related to Atlantis, and Aztlan, which all share this sort of like root pre-flood idea of like a pre-flood man, a pre-flood
the first man,
and a pre-flood man.
Wow,
which is sick, super cool.
I mean, my immediate thoughts. I had always kind of been super interested in this idea. My first YouTube video I ever made over a year ago was on Atlantis, because that's just like my favorite myth, because it runs from, was it a city or was it an entire pre-flood civilization worldwide sort of thing, where we had all this different technology, different beings, like you said, Anunnaki or Nephilim or something, just with a completely different understanding of the universe and the world around us that we've lost entirely. And I like the connection that you made to like Asgard and Hyperborea, because that's the one thing that, like, when we're talking about these myths, I'm always trying to like connect the dots about like, okay, so if we take all of Europe and Asia as being the descendants of Japheth, and the Semitic peoples as being the sons of Shem, then it's like, dude, the sons of Japheth later, they were, do they later come down and then become like the sons of Dan? You know what I mean? So it was like there's like a migration into forming the 12 tribes of Israel under Abraham, and then they migrate back, sort of thing? Or is it like, it's like it's when all those dots sort of become connected. But I think that the connection of all these myths, like the idea of Hyperborea being the place beyond in the north, like the Greeks were writing about Hyperborea in 800, 500 BC, that kind of time period. And a lot of historians like to say like, oh, well, they were very vague. Like, it's just the land beyond the north wind. So it's beyond any Greek cartographer or geographer had ever been before. Was that Scythia, but the Hyperboreans, or did they understand the North Pole? Like, how far did they really go?
I don't want like, don't quote me on this. I'll see if I can find it. I mean, I've got my computer, but I feel like Plato I feel like Greek writers identified Hyperborea as being beyond the Straits of Gibraltar.
Oh, interesting.
Let me see if I can. Let me see if that's true.
Because you referenced someone else in there that said that I wrote it down here. That Herodotus, writing in the
Yeah.
6th century BC, had an understanding of the lands of Britain, where he called them the lands of tin.
Right.
So
So
if
you
you
have
can
to, yeah.
understand the British Isles, there's no. I mean, like he's all the
That's
way in Denmark too. He's
Right.
in Skansa, which we know that the Egyptian geographers like blanking on it right now. He knew of a place. He basically knew where the Goths came from.
Here's that.
Before
Okay. So
Christ.
here's on the topic of this is Herodotus in reference to Hyperborea. He says, as to the Hyperboreans, neither the Scythians nor any other people dwelling in those parts tell anything except the Isodones. So he that would mean that they're not the Scythians, because he's saying that the Scythians don't know about him.
Hmm.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
It's sort of one of those things where it kind of makes you wonder, like, when did this split really happen? Because that's the other thing that I'm trying to corroborate, is because, like, we could. Yeah, go ahead.
well, this says, so this is Diodorus, who
Hmm.
I referenced. He says, opposite Celtica, there lies in the ocean an island no smaller than Sicily. In this island, there is a magnificent sacred precinct of Apollo, and so this is widely interpreted as Britain. Um,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Wait, but he does not. He doesn't call it Hyperborea, but he gives it some attachment to Apollo, and Apollo is supposed to be from there. So
Yeah,
yeah,
Hyperborea.
very interesting.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like I mentioned, when I first started learning about these things, the immediate thing that I wanted to do, and like no shit, it's one of the reasons that I made the Proto-Indo-European migration series, is because we have mythology telling us one thing, we have modern history and archaeology telling us not necessarily an entirely different thing, but a different narrative. And so I feel like in order for us to like properly navigate the myth, we need to at least understand what's in the ground. And so the first series that I made on the Proto-Indo-Europeans is to follow that like historically approved narrative of
Hmm.
where everybody comes from, what are the time periods, what's going on, so that when we talk about these things in the future, we can have a reference for like, is this
Yeah.
corroborative or is this antithetical? Um, and so I think that the Atlantis myth helps us a lot because it shows us not only like what we've lost, but it also shows where we've lost. And that starts to sort of like put the pieces together on the connected mythologies and that sort of thing, which shows why you have, people with like beards and red hair coming to the Americas, and then being proclaimed as the feathered god Quetzalcoatl,
Yeah.
who is like a pre-enlightenment figure sort of thing for the Americans. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think like Viracocha is one as well. There's a whole bunch
yeah.
of
There's a whole section on Viracocha and the mythology around what is believed to be the historical figure and his divine kind of encounter,
yeah.
and everything, and how that, funnily enough, he's one of the only Inca with a beard. So
Mhm. Yeah, see
Mm.
exactly, and
he's
they don't
depicted
grow
with a beard.
beards.
Yeah, and it was basically nobody in their society grew beards.
Yeah.
Um,
Even genetically, it's not that you can't, but like the native indigenous Americans just historically, genetically do not grow facial hair very well. So it's kind of one of those things that ticks you off to like, why are they depicting a bearded person? But
right.
yeah, the one thing that I think almost confuses all of this more on a purely historical level is the European and Near Eastern historians using the term Scythian so liberally all throughout history that it's just kind of like, okay, when we're talking about, because this is the I talk about the Scythians in my recent video, I'm mostly talking about the Paralatai, the Black Sea Scythians, who then become the Sarmatians, who then intermix with the incoming Scandinavians, form the Goths. And then you have this whole other ethnonym of people who literally spread all across the Roman Empire, from Byzantium and the Black Sea in the east all the way to the Straits of Gibraltar in the west. And they're called Goths. And so now it's like, are these people Goths or Scythians? Are they a continuation? Who are they really? What's their you do archaeological digs in northern Spain, and you see people with 90% Swedish DNA, and it's like,
Mhm.
how did they maintain such cultural and genetic homogeneity over what, 700 or 800 years of migrations, um, and like being consolidated under different empires and that sort of thing? It makes you question the historical narrative, and it makes you look at the myth and go, damn, this answers the questions a lot more easily. And I know that people don't like myth and religion for that reason, because they're like, it's a
Yeah.
cop out, it gives too easy of an answer. But it's like, at the end of the day, Occam's razor works for a reason. It just answers
Yeah.
questions more simply. It's like, you don't have to take so many weird shortcuts. Yeah.
Well,
I also think you got it, Dane?
I was just going to add, with the history and archaeology side, something doesn't exist till it's found, right? I mean,
Right.
Troy was a mythical city until an archaeologist found
Yeah.
Troy. And,
Well, it wasn't, and then it was again because of the Enlightenment era sort of thing. But yeah.
Right. But so there's probably more secrets hidden in the earth that have yet to be, or unfortunately may never be discovered.
That's why I think that there's two kinds of people. Well, first I was looking up Quetzalcoatl because I noticed that like Ottle end term, which I thought was interesting considering we were talking about like Atlantis,
And
like that Ottle,
that's an
that
Adel,
Aztec god.
yeah.
Is that correct?
yeah. So
Yeah.
Quetzalcoatl was the feathered serpent god. But Quetzalcoatl, I was just like Googling this, so if the internet's lying to me, my fault. But it is said that Quetzalcoatl is said to have originated from or returned to Aztlan.
Mhm.
And Quetzalcoatl was a feathered serpent, so he was identified as this bridge between earth and sky because the serpent is the earth and the feathers are the sky.
Yeah. Much
Similarly,
like Poseidon in the Proto-Indo-European myths.
yes, and it says here Atlas as well. So Atlas holds up the sky. Literally, his name means to bear or endure. He holds the heavens, so he was also a bridge between earth and sky.
Hmm.
And they were, and yeah, so he is supposed to be, and then also just that name of Atlantis and Atlas.
Mhm.
So there's an interesting idea there, but also, Atlantis is such a frightening idea for a lot of people because you either have this like Darwinian perspective and
Yeah.
this modern perspective, or a traditional perspective that you either view that man grew down up or up down. In which
Mhm.
case you have the myths of like Plato, and you have the Old Testament. You have these Greek ideas of a Satya Yuga, of a golden age when men were gods, when men had golden
Yeah.
skin and like were not hungry, and there was no work and there was no labor and there was no death. And slowly our bodies and our intelligence and our wisdom and our architecture and our art, everything has degraded to now. And
Mhm.
like really we are peons compared to our
We
ancestors.
are dwarves standing on the
Right.
shoulders of giants.
Right. Or you have the Darwinian perspective, the modern perspective, where you believe we came out of germs and we came out of like amoeba. And in which case, and that really fuels like sort of like the progressive idea of like of the enlightenment, of like intelligence, where it's like
Mhm.
we are the best there's ever been, and
Yes.
we are hot shit.
Only
And
getting better.
right, and with that attitude, it's really easy to dismiss myth because you think, oh, but again, like we've had, if Homo sapiens have been Homo sapiens with, let's even take like the evolutionary perspective, 200,000 years.
Mhm.
If we started over from a flood, let's be generous and say 10,000 BC. If in 12,000 years we got to the moon and we've had this modern hardware for 200,000 years on planet Earth, you don't think we did that before? Like
Yeah.
it's just it requires an incredible hubris to think that we're the smartest humans there's ever been with no bias, and that
Mhm.
our history is the most accurate, and that our facts are the
And
best.
yeah.
And I don't know. That's why I get pretty heated about Atlantis because I think a person who can't entertain the idea, I usually end up with disagreeing with a lot of other stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's a big
Because it's a
litmus test.
fundamental disagreeing on what constitutes reality. Because I know that for a lot of people, the reason, like I've had these conversations with my friends before, the reason that they don't believe in God is because they're terrified at the possibility of God existing. In
Right.
the same way that a lot of people, they don't want to admit the fact that maybe as a society we are not peak. We were
Right.
better during the golden age, during the Atlantean pre-diluvian world. Uh and that's hard for people to accept. That's hard for
Yeah.
people because it brings about so many other questions, that the reason that people don't want to wrestle with myth and philosophy and history in the first place is because they don't want those uncomfortable truths. They want the comfortable lies. And science will give you every answer that you
Yeah.
want, whether you like it or not. And for the most part, it's probably going to make you pretty happy. I know that people say like, "Oh, well, it's not a very cozy, idea to think that we're just a speck floating on a rock through space for absolutely no reason at all." And it's like, yeah, but it gives you a concrete answer so that you stop searching, so it puts your soul at
Yeah.
ease in a way, which is just so, I don't know,
Science.
anti-vitalistic.
I think science is also a copium. A lot of time.
Totally,
You know.
100%.
Well, yeah, it
Um,
becomes a religion in and of itself that gets taken dogmatically. I mean, even
The
from an
priests now wear
evolutionary
lab coats.
perspective,
yeah.
I mean,
What's-
people who believe in, evolution, just straight science, nothing metaphysical or religious or anything, that just doesn't mean we're necessarily getting better. I mean, let's say a chicken is related to a T-Rex. Can that not happen to humans? The Chihuahua
Yeah.
came from a wolf. I mean, that same.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to get better. In fact, a lower quality of life. Bacteria multiplies way faster than a complex creature. It's in quantity wise, it's the king of the world. So
right.
I think the idea that we're just getting better and better and better over time doesn't make sense, even from a strictly biological evolutionary sense.
Yeah.
And that a lot of people really do get frightened with this idea that we're not the most enlightened and knowledgeable and
Yeah.
in control of the world that we've ever been.
Well, that's even why we call ourselves Homo sapien, like the wise ape, because that's such a self suck. Like, dude.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that is a
Yeah.
little bit of self-glazing, isn't
And
it?
I know, Jonas. It looks like you're reading That Hideous Strength.
Oh, I've read it a long time ago. I was just thinking about
Nice.
rereading it because it's very pertinent to what's going on now. But that's one of my favorite book series of all
I
time.
know it's topical. Okay, I have it. I need to read it. I have a thought. I was actually about to make a reel on this, but I was on a podcast with Andrew Briggs, and
Andrew,
'cause
yeah.
he reached out to me and asked me about the idea of pseudo-intellectualism. And funny enough, I got a comment on a reel yesterday that somebody called me a pseudo-intellectual.
Oh, you got
And
one comment. Interesting. I've gotten
Right. I think, and I would love to. I want to bulldoze this word into non-existence. And so, on
Please.
the topic of modern science, so pre, there's a historian who says, like, any novice historian will view modern history from like the lens of World War II, any intermediate World War I, but like the well-read will know it's the French Revolution. So let's just say like post-French Revolution is modernity. So
Yes.
pre-French Revolution, societies were all organized relatively the same way, which from east to west. And so like in India, this was called the caste system, where you have the Brahmin, the clergy priest class, the Kshatriya, the warrior class, the Vashya merchant class, the Shudras, the laborers.
You mean my commenters?
Nice.
Just jokes. I love you guys. Just jokes.
Oh shit.
That persisted for thousands of years up until the point of the French Revolution. And ironically, this idea of the clergy warrior nobility, the aristocracy, clergy, aristocracy, merchants, laborers, lasted up until the French Revolution and the first, second, and third estate, right? So the French Revolution is a revolution of the third estate. And against the first and second estate, the clergy and the aristocracy. Now, of course, this leads to the slow trickle of aristocracy, which ultimately, like World War I, kills the aristocracy, right?
Yeah,
Like there are
yeah,
no
yeah.
more royal families left in Europe. But with the French Revolution, there is a vehement attack against the clergy. Like they are killing the church. They're killing literal church heads.
Yeah.
They're taking their heads off, right?
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, I was sort of researching this yesterday. They explicitly changed the language to where they were no longer worshiping God, they were worshiping reason itself. They
I've
were
seen
reason
this.
worshippers.
They had made themselves unto gods.
Right, right. And so you have people recognize reason as your guide. Viva la raison, long live reason. Descend, O reason, enlighten humankind. This is from Memoro. Reason is the only divinity we recognize, right? So God is replaced with reason. And now this is all happening. I guess Descartes would have preceded this, but he says cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. The I think, therefore I am replaces the divine I am that I am. So
Right.
now the I amness is placed in human intellect.
It's
And
upon
this
you
begins-
to bring yourself into existence, sort of thing.
Right, and this, the Enlightenment. What's ironical? It's called the Enlightenment. That root light coming from like Luce, like it's Luciferian,
Lucifer.
it's Promethean, like it's, and so now, the pyramid's always the pyramid. That's never going away. But what was previously the clergy is cut off. It's replaced with the eye of intellect, of human reason, right? And so post French Revolution, religion is replaced with reason. That never goes away. And now you get, and that's why, Nietzsche ends up concluding like God is dead and we have killed him, because they decapitated him. And
Yep.
we now stand there. And so what's interesting now is, you reach 2026, right? And the consequences is because God is dead and God was like the parent watching us. Now we are all gods unto our own selves, which I think is like a Bible verse. Like there was no king in Israel and every man was like a god unto himself, like
Yep.
something along those
Exactly.
lines.
Yeah.
And the consequences is because intellect is God, and because we all become little gods, the only thing a god fears is another god because it challenges his omnipotence.
Right.
So if I say
Even
something,
God admits this in the deck.
Thou shalt not worship any other gods, right?
Exactly. It's number one. It's the most important one.
And so the consequence is, and on the topic of science, like in God we trust gets replaced with trust the science. Meanwhile, I have the motto of the Royal Society, which published Newton, Nollis in verba, take no man's word for it. The motto of science is to doubt everything. And now it becomes an ideology, becomes a doctrination, science becomes a religion, intellect becomes a religion. And the consequence of that is every man is a god unto himself. So when I say something that challenges somebody's godhood, because if I challenge your intellect, I challenge your very existence, because cogito ergo sum. You, the person challenged, cannot grapple with that. So they must say you're a pseudo-intellectual. You're pseudo, meaning fake. Like you are a false god. False god. You're not a real god. I'm a god. I'm a real god. You're not a real god. You're not a real god. Stop saying that. And it's sort of like when Moses is in the hall of Pharaoh and he's having to compete with the Pharaoh's magicians, and it's like, it's my word voodoo versus your word voodoo.
Yeah. Whoever has the best magic wins.
My statistics say this. That's not real. That's a fallacy. No, that's a fallacy. No, it's all just word magic. It's all just nonsense.
It's sophistry.
It's a waste of time, and it's all circular. And that's why everybody calls each other a pseudo-intellectual, because gods can't tolerate other gods. And if I'm right, and that makes me a god, that challenges your godhood. And like that's why I hate that word, because that word is as dumb and brutish and stupid and superstitious as some medieval peasant calling me a heretic. So that's no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. Don't challenge my thoughts. And I think it's like Kierkegaard, I don't know who says it, but like people demand for the freedom of speech because then they don't have to use the freedom of thought. And it's just so frustrating that like that term pseudo-intellectual is such a stupid, vulgar, ugly term. And it's just so lazy. Like you're paying for internet and data service to be able to see the world and understand the world and leave your thoughts, and the best you can come up with is that's not real. That's not real. That's not real. It's just
not
so
that deep.
Disgusting. It's not that deep. Same thing. Yeah.
Same shit. Same vibe.
I mean, all of us who make long for, pseudo-intellectual, it is such a lazy cop-out term, because anybody can throw it at anybody who's speaking about serious topics or speaking at length about something. It is so easy to sling, and it's one of those things that it reminds me kind of when like people say cringe or LARP or any of these terms.
Or
it almost always ends up becoming a reflection of themselves rather than of who they're attacking. And I think that term is way overused, used by people who have
Yeah.
no business slinging it because it's easy, right? You can just say
Very.
you're pseudo-intellectual. You don't have to address any of the
Right.
arguments or
Concerns
conceptions
made because
brought
you
up.
delete all of your arguments if you say, "Oh, well, you're pseudo intellectual anyways."
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the things I wanted to throw a quick thread on, because you mentioned the French Revolution, we began having these world revolutions around the same time period, late 1700s, early 1800s, right after the Enlightenment era. And that's exactly when, what are they called? Preterists put the millennial reign of Christ coming to an end and the release of Satan from his binding in hell in the Bible for a little season, that 250-year period, which is supposed to, like, if we give the I'm not necessarily a believer of this theory, but I think it's also kind of one of those myths that answers a lot of questions. And it talks about how 1,000 years is a reign, so a season is just a quarter of that. It's 250 years. And the American Revolution was 1776. We gained our independence July 4th. So this July 4th coming up is the 250 years. It's the end of the little season of Satan in their chronology. And it's interesting to think that all of those things, the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Enlightenment, all of these things where we sort of switched and we took the power away from the church, we gave it into the hands of the people so that everybody could become Luciferian enlightened beings of their own accord, and then practice their own science and all of these things without the need for God anymore.
Yeah.
All happened right at this time when people say it was the beginning of the season of Satan and total deception and that sort of thing.
Kind of.
On
Go ahead.
on top of the 250 year, I've got a couple of books. So like Glove Theory, puts forth the 250 year idea, where that's just like one of like the civilizational life cycles, is that it goes like the waning part is like, affluence, intellect, and then decadence, and it gives it this 250-year lifespan. Similarly, I just got a new book called The Fourth Turning. I'll go grab it real quick. It's got an interesting backside. So The Fourth Turning, an American prophecy, what the cycles of history tell us about America's next rendezvous with destiny. So it's written by William Strauss and Neil Howe. The back says, first comes a high, a period of confident expansion. Next comes an awakening, a time of spiritual exploration and rebellion. Then comes an unraveling, in which individualism triumphs over crumbling institutions. Last comes a crisis, the fourth turning, when society passes through a great and perilous gate in history. And their point is that modern history moves in cycles, each one lasting about the length of a long human life, each composed of 4 20-year eras, or turnings, that comprise history's seasonal rhythm of growth, maturation, entropy, and rebirth. And so they put forth this sort of idea of 80 or so year cycles, 80 to 85 year cycles or whatever, 80 to 90 year cycles. And so it starts with 1770s, American Revolution, 1860s, 1860s, the American Civil War, 1940s, World War II, to conclude an era, and then that puts us on the timetable for 2030, the fourth turning. And so what's interesting is if you combine 3 of these 4 turnings with like the season of a millennia or glove theory, like there's this recurring idea of like a 250-year lifespan. Titler sequence, the Titler cycle also has this sort of lifespan idea. So I really do believe, like, not even, I mean, I've got crazy crackpot conspiracies and schizo rants.
Me
but
too.
Even like from a historical distance, if I'm to remove my national pride and my hubris, it just looks undeniable that in the year 2030, things are going to go super sideways one way or another, right?
Yeah, for better or worse, depending on which side you're standing on, perhaps.
Right. But something's got to happen,
Something's gonna crack. Exactly. It's like a pressure cooker. It's only it's getting to the point where, I think especially because like we live in this age of immediate information, and we live in this age of like pseudo-intellectualism. Anybody can say anything that they want and not believe each other. We're getting to this point where like nobody trusts anybody or anything anymore, and there's also too much information available that it's all so overwhelming. it's going to crack one day. And then we're
Yeah.
either going to completely like ascend as a society, as we're all going to like realize that everything is bullshit, and like we're gonna somehow reach some new level of understanding, or we're gonna go back to it's gonna be a new dark age, and everything is gonna be lost, because that's the entire point of like the European dark age that we had, was we lost the ability to read and write, and we lost the ability to like share stories, and like there was this weird like, you know, cultural and technological stalling. And I almost think it's because the world was so shaken at the time that people just didn't trust anything, and they didn't trust anybody who was coming up with anything new. And I almost feel like we're going into that again, because we see the rise of AI and everything. Nobody trusts anything. And then like, no, everybody's afraid. Oh, look at Hollywood. Hollywood's afraid to make an original movie. They just keep making the same bullshit from the past, or like the next Iron Man movie or superhero whatever, because they're afraid to like take a stab at making something new, because nobody's gonna fucking believe you anyways. And so it's like this weird, like, it's either gonna be a renaissance or we're going straight back to the dark ages.
Well, I've had a theory for a while that right now, I guess you could say the past 50, 60, 70 years, really since World War II ended, going back a little further, but really picking up in the 50s till now, we've lived, relatively speaking, of course, especially in the West, America, in an era of unprecedented safety, comfort, egalitarianism, with medicine, science, everything. I mean, it's really historically insane. And now we see with the internet and everything, the average person there's so little required of them to exist in this world. And I think it's kind of like when you pull a rubber band back. It's like we pulled it to this secure, safe. We have all these systems of medicine, systems of caring for people, systems of production, food, all this stuff. And when it starts unraveling, and I think it's starting to unravel already, it's going to snap back and cut a huge separating of the chaff from the wheat from the chaff. I can't remember what the term is, but I think starting in the next century, it's going to start really picking up, and a lot of these people who have been made soft, if you will, by modernity, I think are in for a rather rude awakening, much like much of the Roman world was when the Western Empire fell. But then you have some people like King Arthur who they're heroes. It's a time. A dark age is a time for heroes, and precedes the golden age.
There's never been an easier time to be a hero, and like that's a huge
bar so low.
The bar is so low, and like that's a big idea of like Evelyn Spengler, and like this idea of riding the tiger, Kali Yuga, and just maintaining like inner control. Like I like to read about like Ernst Jünger, Nietzsche, Spengler. They have this like this vital idea of remaining like noble and aristocratic even at the end of the world, and that's how you maintain the seeds in the new day. I think it's like I was thinking about, I had this idea of, and we were just talking about like the world like sort of turning over, and it's how many revolutions have followed the French Revolution, and earlier this week like I dropped this idea of like the pity fuck.
I love that
video,
by the way.
Love that.
Which was a lot of people didn't, I don't think, got my point. My point was that the idea of the pity fuck is that there are ways to moralize atrocious things. That's why you do them, right? And my point is that we can only, historically, we've only been able to moralize revolutions retroactively, right? So like the French Revolution is very muddy because it's like you empower the people, but there's also the reign of terror. Like the American Revolution is widely touted as like a very successful revolution, but there are lots of revolutions, like you take like Mao Zedong, like that Great Leap Forward results in millions of people dying.
Very ironic name for the Great Leap Forward.
So there's this so my argument is this. My argument is that morality serves to justify pity fucks. A pity fuck is a thing where you say like, normally I wouldn't do this, but we should make an exception for me.
Right.
Typically this is selfish, but what I'm about to do, taking all this power, killing all these people, in this case, is really quite selfless. and I'm doing a very good thing. That's what morality does not serve to. Morality is not concerned with who should I feel good helping. It's who should I not feel bad killing. Because
Yeah.
that's what I'm about to do right now.
For the
okay?
for the greater good, which you are
Right,
also
for
not
the
a
greater
fan
good,
of.
right?
Yeah.
And so what I think is interesting is that so this whole idea of like a Marxist class revolution, Evola called that Evola called. Let me see if I can find this quote.
Yeah.
We talked about the third estate revolting in the French Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
There's this idea of the fourth estate, which is the laborer class of the caste system,
Right.
ultimately getting its revolution, right? And so you have it has the idea of the proletariat. So there's
That's
Henry
what I was going to
Fielding
say.
says,
It's got to be a
yes,
communist revolution thing.
none of our political writers take notice of any more of the three estates, namely kings, lords, and commons, passing by in silence that very large and powerful body which from the fourth estate in this community, the mob. So we have the idea of the mob. Then we have, let's see, George Clemenceau said in a speech to the Chamber of Deputies, 1891, "Take care, the dead are strong persuaders. One must pay attention to the dead. I tell you that the primary fact of politics today is the inevitable revolution which is preparing. The fourth estate is rising and reaching for the conquest of power. One must take sides. Either you meet the fourth estate with violence or you welcome it with open arms.
Mm-hmm.
The moment has come to choose." And then finally you have Julius Evola, Men Among the Ruins. There are 4 stages. In the first stage, the elite has a purely spiritual character, embodying what may be generally called divine right. That's the divine right to rule, right? Because you used to have priest kings, whether
Right.
it's Pharaoh or in China, you've got, the emperors. This elite expresses an ideal of immaterial virility. In the second stage, the elite has the character of warrior nobility. So he has this idea of power aggressing down the castes. And so in the Bronze Age, the Age of Aries, people are just killing each other. There's not really this transcendental element.
Mm-hmm.
It's just metal killing metal, people taking money. At the third stage, we find the advent of oligarchies of plutocratic and capitalistic nature, such as they arise in democracies. This is pure material. This is like, we don't even fight spiritual wars anymore. We fight banker wars. We fight wars for money and for material.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth and last elite is that of the collectivist and revolutionary leaders of the fourth estate. And so, from the flood to now, power has moved down the caste to where now the fourth estate is like calling for its payday. And what's interesting is, this idea of morality, this idea of the pity fuck, of like doing things for the greater good. We live in a postmark. This is where I think things get really dangerous. And you
Mm-hmm.
talk about like nothing seeming real anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Essentially, Marx puts forth, and the people after him put forth this idea that truth. So previously, we had a clergy class who appealed to God, like this transcendental truth element, and the truth was above all men.
Mm-hmm.
Following Marx, truth becomes an element of praxis. Truth is a tool of revolution. So I'll just quote some people, so I'm not bullshitting you. So you have Georgie Lucas. Orthodox Marxism refers exclusively to method, to doing things.
Yeah.
Let's see. We've got Gramsci. Let's see. What matters is not the objective truth of things, but their effectiveness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Philosophy of praxis does not seek truth for its own sake. Truth is a means, not an end. There is no ideology-free knowledge. All knowledge serves ideology. Philosophy is, in the last instance, class, struggle, and theory. You have Herbert Marcuse. That was Luis Althusser. You have Marcuse. Tolerance is turned into an instrument for absolving servitude. The truth cannot be neutral. So now the truth is not a thing above us. It's a thing that's between us. It's a weapon.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's my truth and your truth.
Right. Then you have Sartre, who puts truth is becoming. An idea becomes true by being realized. And so, Mao Zedong, the criterion of truth is practice. Correct ideas come from social practice. So previously, I included in my video about the pity fuck of George Washington, before he crosses the Delaware, he makes an appeal to God. He says, like, God willing, like, God as our witness, this revolution will be done for millions.
Mm-hmm.
But now, post-Marx, truth is not a thing you appeal to, it's a thing you kill other people with. Truth is your weapon.
Yes.
And that's why I think, that's why, and then George Orwell's satirical response, truth is whatever the party holds to be truth. So now truth is ideological.
100%.
And my argument was this, is like, that's what's so dangerous about the pity fuck and about revolutions, is that revolutions that don't appeal to truth and create their own truth, that's like, I take a bribe, or like, my girl catches me cheating on her and I say, truth is whatever serves the party, sweetheart. I'm the
Yeah.
party. Like, that's, I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah.
It now justifies the pity fuck. And, this is something I think that's really interesting is, on the topic of the pity fuck, I was thinking about this idea of like, if you view tradition positively, or you like tradition, you're called like a bootlicker or something, right? You're called like a dirty no good whatever.
Yeah.
And I think here's a really interesting, I wasn't gonna make a reel about this because like people can't take nuance very well,
No,
and
not
it's
at
like
all.
you have to be fast.
Yeah, nuance.
But I was gonna say, like, do you like the Rebellion, and show you like Star Wars Rebels? And you'd be like, yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And how about this one? And then it's like the Civil War Rebels, because they were rebels too. They were rebels too.
Yep.
But of course, retroactively, we moralize them as villains, right? Because of what they were fighting for. But what's interesting
What we're told they were fighting for. Sorry.
Right. What's interesting is that there are, and you can find this. I mean, there are political cartoons. I'm gonna preface this also by saying this before I say anything.
And also send them to me. I'll post them.
Okay. I think everybody in charge right now is probably like a pedophile. I mean, I feel like that goes without, right? Like, is that
no, we can totally say that. There's no doubt in my mind, like that. I mean, we don't need to talk about the actual like Epstein files directly, but it's pretty apparent now that if you are not in the know that the world is run by cannibalistic pedophiles, then I don't trust you.
Right. But here's, and now I'm gonna send this to Jonas, but just so you know that I'm not. There's a Confederate political cartoon of Abraham Lincoln taking off his face to reveal the devil beneath his face. The cartoon is called Masks and Faces, and it says King Abraham before and after issuing the Emancipation Proclamation. The Confederacy, by removing all sort of like aesthetic garb, the Confederacy principally were the first no kings, who called him a federalist, which would have been contemporary a term for fascist, like a person seizing power. A federalist,
Right, correct.
A king who suspended habeas corpus. Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus to fight the war, but now 150 years later, he's ranked as the #1 president of the United States of America, right? And so what's interesting is, like, as I look at these things, I would argue, like, post-Marx, like after Marx, we are like in a post-truth society, because again, truth is just a thing that's used for revolution.
Yeah.
And now, like, because now revolution doesn't even mean the same thing it did before Marx, because revolution is whatever you can use the truth to justify whatever revolution you want, And but it's just really interesting that like 150 years later, I wanted to make that meme where it's like, you've seen that meme where the guy's changing the calendar, like somebody says, like,
I know exactly what you're talking about, and he's like flipping back to
They're using cannons in the Ukrainian war, and he's like, it's like 1087, it's like whatever. And it's like this idea of like, I was also going to pull up the words of like Jefferson Davis. You have state leaders saying, we're not going to comply with federal orders because like it's a threat to our states' rights. Like that's Civil War era rhetoric of the Confederacy, because I'm seeing if I can find it. So let's see. So you have here's Governor John Letcher of Virginia, April 1861. The militia of Virginia will not be furnished to the powers at Washington for any such use or purpose as they have in view. Sounds very modern. Let's see. This is Jefferson Davis, message to Confederate Congress, 1861. The government of the United States has assailed us with a numerous army for the purpose of subjugating us. That's Jefferson Davis. Robert Toombs, the time for compromise has passed. The South will meet you in battle. So you have, this idea of states, of people calling a president a king. And again, I just want to say, I think they're all pedophiles, probably, right? Like, I don't think...
And God knows how far back it goes.
Right? So it's like I don't like I like to use the word like ideologically immune. Like
Uh-huh.
I've tried to like I don't like any of it. Um uh but I just think it's really funny that you know history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes.
Very much
And
so.
there just seems to be it's just we just live in such a silly world because now it's post-truth and nothing's real anymore. And that's why like you just can't even take any of it seriously because it's like it's all nonsense. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, and it almost kind of makes it makes it even more difficult because like ever since the time of Socrates, if you're somebody who's well spoken and really well put together, they're going to try and put you to death for it. If you're really
Right.
good at persuading people, if you're really good at making your, because like I mean, think about it. I know like I'm not trying to glaze Socrates, but he was put to death just for showing people that like, hey, like you don't know any better than I do, you know? And
Right.
they're like, fuck you, bro. Like, you need to go. And, you know, I think like we do need to be well spoken. We do need to be, well read. And we do need to like
Yeah.
be able to analyze the things around us like the three of us try to do, and many others do as well. But then at the end of the day, like, you need to just be able to take it on the chin when people are like, you're a rhetorician, you're a sophist, you're a pseudo intellectual, because if it's not going to jive with their truth, then like you're either, yeah, a liar, or you're just doing too much. And bro, like, relax, it's not that deep, don't worry about it. But it's that exact sort of like vegetative state that people
Yeah.
exist in, where they're like, don't care about anything, be nonchalant, trying too hard is bad, and yada yada. That allows, on a very base level, the people in power to continue doing whatever the fuck they
Yeah.
want and control you and use you. Because I mean, like, in the same, I mean, this is such a crazy callback, but we're talking about like how the T Rex became a chicken, you know, in
Yeah.
the same way that man, as Atlantean titans have become, um, let's say, lab experiments for the elites to
Yeah.
control and do whatever they want with. I don't know if you guys saw the exact file that I'm talking about, but they are, you know, literally turning humans into lab experiments that are more easily controlled, favorable to whoever is
Yeah.
in power. And it's literally how you're becoming a domesticated animal. And you're
Yeah.
telling me that I'm a pseudo intellectual for warning you about these things
Yeah.
Well, it's
to your own
funny.
demise.
So everyone, we're talking about post-truth society, and
Hmm.
everyone likes to LARP that there is like this universal truth they're appealing to. And everyone likes to think, well, if I can just get them to understand
Yeah.
the truth,
Hmm.
then they'll agree with me. But Achilles says, what is it? There can be no accord between lions and men
Lions
or
and men.
something. There's some people that are just their truth versus your truth. It is two
Yeah.
different truths, and the
Yeah.
only accord between you is whose truth comes on top and
Yeah.
Yeah.
whose
Well, even on a very base level, like I mean, the IQ pill, you know, there's just like IQ differences between people that like some people actually can't grasp concepts that somebody else might be talking about. Like, you know, there, I can't remember what it is. It's very low baseline, like maybe like less than 80 or something IQ, and you're not able to grasp hypothetical concepts. So like they ran this
yeah.
study where they were asking people with extremely low IQs how they would feel this morning if they had not eaten breakfast. And they were like,
Yeah.
well, I did eat breakfast. And it's like, no, no, but how would you feel if you did? And you're like, don't know what you're talking about. I had breakfast this morning. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and it's
The
that sort of thing that it's like, that's a very extreme example, but there's just layers. Like, it might just be one small veil that
Yeah,
a
there's certain
110
things that
IQ and a
just
115 IQ just are not seeing exactly.
yeah.
So you do have to wonder, like, you know, nature versus nurture. How much of this has been programmed in us where we're supposed to be these docile, domesticated animals that don't ask certain questions while the elites can? Or is it just like you were just dealt a bad hand at birth, and like there's just some concepts that you're not going to be able to grab, but that's why you rely on like the aristocracy or the like nobility to be able to handle these things for you. And I know that that's a very sort of like, I don't know, not nihilistic, but just like deterministic way of seeing things.
I do think it's like um No, it isn't. Some people I think really do cannot they can't conceptualize the power of like if in a statement.
Hmm.
Um, because it's like once you say if everything, and that's why I think, for me, like that's not real. That's not real.
Yeah.
If there's a tiger behind you, there's no tiger, bro. Don't worry. And for me, like that's why I love thinking so much,
Yeah.
and even like reading things I disagree with, because you know I mean, I'd argue that like even like I'm not even sure what my own name is. Like I'm willing to really sort of just entertain it,
Sure.
um, because it's fun. Like if it's fun
For the
and
love of the
like
game, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like I like to view, like, again, like that's why wisdom or like intelligence was personified as Sophia, which
Yeah.
is where you get philosophy, Sophia, like Lady Sophia, beautiful wisdom and intelligence, like.
And the love
Um,
of her.
it should be like courted, and it should be respected, and it's like I don't know, it's and I think the big challenge that needs to be made is for people to stop saying my truth versus your truth. It's my ideology versus your ideology. Don't the
Yeah, full
truth
spade a spade.
we're like two knights jousting. The truth is the really hot princess who's watching us, right?
Yeah.
And like my lance is my ideology and your lance is your ideology.
Yeah,
Let's
she will
not
decide.
She'll this. Yeah, right. Don't. I'm not fighting the princess. I'm fighting you.
Hmm.
And honestly, like even if I beat you, the princess might not like me, right? The princess is the princess. Stop. Don't talk for the princess' sake. I'll talk for myself. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just think it's. And I think I don't know if it's been coined yet, but this idea of like a post-truth society, because I think even when we use the word truth, it doesn't mean what it used to mean. It means,
Yeah.
and I was talking with guy Connor Beaton. He does Man Talks earlier this week.
Hmm.
We were talking a lot about truth, and I was also talking to one of my clients. I mean, you guys know this, but like if
Hmm.
the people who don't know, I'm a personal trainer in Manhattan. I was talking to one of my clients, and like what I love about the ancient texts is that they point to the transcendental real truth. But the thing is if you write it perfectly down, the truth is like a glass ball.
Mm.
If you don't know what you're looking at, you'll look right through it. And if your
Uh,
hands are dirty and you pass it around, everybody else will dirty it, and then now you're just looking at this orb of dirt, and you're not even looking at the material anymore.
mhm.
The ancient texts, and like really, I think the Bible especially, like any of those like old religious texts are so awesome because you need to be initiated to read them and understand what's really going
It's
on. And
spiritually
also,
encrypted.
right, and life is an initiation. So it's like you
Yes.
read something, you come back 20 years later, and you're like, and now the word's alive, and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I not see this the first time?
Right.
And yeah, what's so hard with it's just such a shame that truth used to be a princess who we talk about like she's a harlot now. She's
Shh.
like, again, Marx talks about truth like she's some prostitute that can just come over and suck his dick to get him off for his petty fuck.
Yeah.
And it's like that's
Wisdom used
not
to be the mother of Jesus Christ.
right. Right. Like it used to be a thing that you would like just get down on your knees for. And now as she gets down on her knees for you,
Yeah.
I just don't think that's not how I view truth. Truth should not serve man. Man should serve truth. Was what was I made in this other podcast. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It
it's a
makes you
shame.
wonder. It makes you wonder, like, if there even is, like I mentioned, that with the 2030s coming up, like we're either going into the dark ages or a revolution, and I think that it will depend, like Dane said, which side you're standing on, because it's going to be
Yeah.
like really good for some of us and really
or
bad
or
for
what your
others.
quality is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Are
and
you
it
a
makes me wonder,
hero
like,
or
yeah, or a peasant, and it's like, is that going to be the defining factor whether or not you're capable of grasping this concept of truth as a sort of um, as a virtue instead of a weapon?
Right.
And I think that that's going to be the
well
deciding factor.
with AI now especially. I have a theory that might be good for us.
Fuck it, let's rip.
Because AI now with the generation is getting so realistic. We're probably not far where Jonas I could make you frickin' incriminate you in anything I wanted to. And it to the average person,
You wouldn't.
it would be really difficult to tell, if not
Yeah.
impossible. And I think
Yeah.
then maybe some people will stop appealing to some big sense of truth just because the news said it or just because I saw it on the internet, because there's nothing worth trusting, because anything can be manipulated. You have to start trusting the things that you see and experience for yourself. And it might, in a roundabout way, kind of ground us again to our reality, the reality of your neighbors,
Objective
your friends,
truth.
things that you can see unfold in front of your eyes. Now that the internet, which for a while was treated as this grand repository of knowledge, and it is, but now it is so easily faked and manufactured and corrupted, and it might force us to not appeal to the other as some bastion of knowledge, but actually live life and encounter things for ourselves and meet people we trust. So I don't know. That's an optimistic way of viewing where AI is going.
I'm also very hopeful because I believe fundamentally, like, I believe there is an effort to put together. So like, and this was like, so like Bill Cooper. I don't know if you guys know Bill Cooper. He wrote Behold the Pale Horse. So he was like a naval intelligence guy who like talks about UFOs and conspiracy stuff. And, he talked about how like through the Hegelian dialectic, this idea of like synthesizing until this end state of, World War I was a war between democracy and aristocracy, and it resulted in the death of aristocracy.
Yes.
World War II was a war between fascism and communism, and fascism was killed. And now World War III is going to be between capitalism and communism. Like that's the stage. Is the revolt of the fourth estate. And now this is a whole sidebar. Like I could do a whole other video on this. Fascism is also a product of like fascism is a manifestation of like Marxist thought. Like it was like
it's a response to it.
I hate the idea that it's like you get it by having an exceedingly free market, like it's a rightist thought. Like that was actually an effort by journalists to like rebrand it as right, even though it wasn't. But that's a sidebar. Fun fact on the topic of like Antifa and fascist stuff, the tail side of the dime, the Mercury dime, before FDR changed it, was the fascists. So while we were fighting fascist Italy, our currency had the same symbol of the fascists.
Yeah, the axe on
and the bundle of sticks, right? And so I also, similarly with pseudo-intellectual, I think George Orwell says that like the term fascist is a term also thrown around just to like end conversation, like it's like an end script, like it's an NPC lesson. But long story short, I do believe there's an effort to reach this sort of, and then this NWO status, where like at the end of the day, it's a total state, right? Because from the flood to now, war has been two small groups fight. Now it's a big group.
Yep.
Two small groups fight, bigger group. The groups get bigger. So now the stage is set for like global chicanery. And
love that word.
Whoever wins that controls the world, right? Like, now we're playing for all the marbles.
Right.
But I do believe, I'm hopeful, because I believe, like, I view evil. Evil, they have to reach for that. NWO, New World Order, has to reach for that. And they have this sort of like bulletproof skin, but to reach that, they have to let their hand out. And that's when it's at its weakest. Like a turtle is invincible in its shell, but it's got to get its head out to eat,
Yeah, well, that's the thing is like evil has to show its hand ever so slightly in order to
get what it wants.
To get what it wants. It's the same way that like a vampire needs to be invited into your home in order to actually like
weak.
That's exactly it. Yes, I was going to say like when Bard
of the dragon or the
Bard shoots him in the underbelly because like he's got his hide of gold because he can lay on his riches all day, but that's its weakness, right? So it has to have an inherent weakness, and so I'm super hopeful. What I think is really, I'm super hopeful. I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, it's really easy to despair. But it's like, again, if you just remain like upright and aristocratic in your heart, and again, you're just looking at it like the hero loves a fight. Like this is the age when myths are made, like new myths.
Yeah.
Like you could, maybe this all goes up in flames and it's like, you get to be the Noah for the next 12,000 years.
Yeah.
Who the hell knows? So it's very exciting.
Next
and you
King
just have
Arthur,
to,
next Achilles.
Right.
You never know. Someone has to pull the sword from the stone. and someone has to be the knights that follow King Arthur, and the Knights of the Round Table. It's for those select few, it is a time to prove their worth and forge the next era. And you can lament that it's come to that, or you can do your duty and try
Cheer
to carry,
up, bro.
the flame forward, or at least
It's the end
die
of the world,
trying.
bro. Cheer up.
Dude, oh my god, it's so...
What is that Spangler quote about the Roman soldier? I love that quote. Who stands...
Yeah, like holding his post.
At
Vesuvius.
I reference that so much. I'm surprised I don't have it memorized, but...
There's also I don't know how much longer you guys want to go. I've got a great poem on this topic. I didn't write it.
I would love to keep going, especially because I want to do the Q&A at the end. Do you guys mind if we pause for 2 seconds so I can take a piss?
I also have to use the restroom if we're
Please,
going to pause.
Cool. 1 minute break.
Dan, I saw you said this recently, but I find Coke Zero to be much stupendous. Coke Zero compared to Diet Coke?
Dude, I was Diet Coke man for a long time, and then I finally stopped being a contrarian, and I took the Coke Zero pill, and I haven't looked back.
Oh, dude, Coke Zero, bro. I've got some Coke Zero on me right now.
It's got a certain panache.
It does. I was a Diet Coke fan.
I don't know what the difference is.
Like, it's just like a different cancer.
Yeah, it's a different artificial sweetener. My dad was a big Diet Coke guy, so I drank
would
Diet
not like
Coke.
Us talking about this.
No, he wouldn't.
No.
He was a Diet Coke drinker growing up, and I was always a Diet Coke diehard because I never even tasted regular Coke until I was like in middle school, and then I was like, oh, this shit's way too sweet. This is not good. And then when my girl and I went to Italy a couple of years ago, they don't have Diet Coke over there, just Coke Zero. And I tried it, and I was like, "Oh fuck, I'm Coke Zero pilled now."
Yeah, it's so good.
It is.
I don't know. I have You want to do Q&A now, Jonas?
Yeah. Well, I'm curious about this. I'm curious about this poem that you have.
It's a really good poem.
But I also, if you guys want to, do you guys want me to hit you with the Q&A? Oh, look at that. Your video just popped up on me.
How's it doing?
Dude, 3,400 likes, 81 comments, 197 reposts.
Okay.
Not bad.
That was about an hour and a half ago. Okay.
That's what I'm talking about, dude.
Right before we started.
Mine is at 830 likes, 15 comments, 62 reposts.
I've been trying to do, I think the Friday evening post has been my best time frame for me.
Really interesting. I've always because to be honest with you, I'm not trying to hype myself up or anything, but Instagram just always seems to do so well anyway.
Instagram is
TikTok.
Yeah.
I love Instagram.
The only reason I still post on TikTok is, for one, I like the editing for short form, and also. But performance wise, my TikTok, I've had one good one that actually popped off recently, but other than that, Instagram's been blowing it out of the water.
TikTok's ass,
and Instagram, it'll show me high caliber notifications from other creators and from high profile people. It keeps a lot of the shittier comments out of sight, which is nice because then I don't have to deal with them. If I see it, it's harder to ignore. You get tempted.
So it's been a great lesson as I've been posting more. I remember the first time I posted something that got some heat, I felt like I was going to get in trouble. And I was terrified.
You get nervous, yeah.
Now I realize, suck my balls, bro. I can say what I want.
No, quite literally. That's why I posted that one video a while ago where I was because when I first started posting, I remember there was so much pressure on me while I'm writing my scripts. I'm changing my words so much because I'm trying to appeal to both sides and show, guys, I'm not a bigot. I'm not this. I'm not some fucking pseudo-intellectual. I'm not all of these things. I'm just I'm a truth teller. I'm a truth seeker. Yeah. And then you realize, you can literally say whatever you want. People are going to fucking hate your guts and want your head.
Yeah.
And so I was
you might as well say it true, right?
Suck my fucking dick. Yeah. This is the truth.
Someone will watch 5 seconds of your video and misinterpret those 5 seconds, and that's their truth of you and that's
dude, with the fame sex money power one, bro, I have people saying well, you're just a hedonist. I'm like, bro, did you watch the fucking video, dude?
Yeah,
people are
exactly.
so stupid, bro.
Dude,
can I've got to my I had to move my charger to my computer
Uh-huh.
to because it's gonna die, and then I want to move it back to my phone real quick. So if I could, can I get this poem up? I think you guys will
Yeah, yeah,
like this.
yeah. Are you guys cool with keeping that last little bit that we were just talking about in the podcast, or you want me to cut that?
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
All right, cool, 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 cool. So we're
So
live again. Go ahead.
I am not a. Are we live right now? We've been live this whole time.
We're not live. We're not
Oh, okay.
live, but like I'm
Okay,
saying,
okay.
Yeah,
recording's
there's
running.
actually an
Yeah.
audience. We've been live streaming the whole time.
That would be fucking terrifying. The like first 2 minutes of that. Anyways, nobody will know. Let's continue.
No, I like that. I mean, it's fun. I mean, I think the big thing with me on social media is I try not to be a fucking because I am a pretentious, egotistical asshole.
Oh, we
I
all
try
are.
to
That's why
have-
we're here making content.
That's why we're doing it, right? I
Yeah.
try to have reels where it's like taking the piss and like shit posting and
Yeah.
Man,
you gotta keep people on their toes.
yeah, you gotta
do.
goof off sometimes. You gotta show a fun zany.
Well, dude, that's why I think your how to sit, how to stand, how to walk videos were
That's
just
good.
fucking gold, bro. Gold.
Yeah. So this is the poem. This is by Felicia Hemans, Hemans. She lived from 1793 to 1835. This poem is called Casabianca, written in 1826. The boy stood on the burning deck, whence all but he had fled. The flame that lit the battle's wreck shone round him o'er the dead. Yet beautiful and bright he stood, as born to rule the storm, a creature of heroic blood, a proud though childlike form. The flames rolled on, he would not go without his father's word. That father, faint in death below, his voice no longer heard. He called aloud, "Say, father, say, if yet my task is done." He knew not that the chieftain lay unconscious of his son. "Speak, father," once again he cried, "if I may yet be gone." And but the booming shots replied, and fast the flames rolled on. Upon his brow he felt their breath, and in his waving hair, and looked from that lone post of death in still yet brave despair, and shouted but once more aloud, "My father, must I stay?" While o'er him fast, through sail and shroud, the wreathing fires made way. They wrapped the ship in splendor wild, they caught the flag on high, and streamed above the gallant child like banners in the sky. There came a burst of thunder sound. The boy, oh, where was he? Ask of the winds that far around with fragments strewed the sea, with mast and helm and pennon fair, that well had borne their part. But the noblest thing which perished there was that young and faithful heart. Casabianca.
Love it.
Casabianca.
That's
That's what I
beautiful.
think about at the end of the world.
Yeah.
Nobody tells you to go anywhere, you stay at the ship and you die with it.
Yeah.
On
On your truth, with your clear eyes and a full heart.
Well said.
Thank you.
Can't lose.
Can't lose, bro. Oh man. Okay, well, that beautifully sums up pretty much everything we've spoken about. It's a perfect transition for our Q&A. So, here's the thing. Dane and I have we've started a Patreon, and we have decided to sort of like have a little bit more sort of guest interaction where guests can ask us questions. We'll eventually want to do some stuff live in the future. And I realize now, especially having you on as our guest, why we need to have this sort of like slight barrier towards the Q&A, because we have received close to 100 questions. And I'm trying to kind of parse through and see like which ones are really worth asking. So you guys bear with me really quick while I find a good one. Okay, incredible. Well, we already kind of addressed this. One of the first ones that caught my attention from Ismize Dominic. He says, does the theory of the fourth turning fit with Spangler's theory of history? Super
Very relevant.
coincidental.
Yeah.
That was preemptively asked?
That was preemptively asked. This was
Wow.
asked yesterday.
Wow.
That,
what are the odds, man?
How cool. So
Okay,
shout out
for-
to Ismize Dominic.
What was the question again?
Does the theory of the fourth turning fit with Spangler's theory of history?
Yes. Next question. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. No. I'm like, we can rapid fire some of these because there's a lot, but
No, I mean, I think we've talked about that. I think that's sort of, yeah, that's been the topic of conversation. I think the what I love about the historian is that you have to be sort of like apathetic and you have to be unemotional and distanced.
mhm.
And, you know, and that's different from being a fearmonger. That's different from being a hater. And I think if you have to look at civilizations like they're biological things, just like men are, just like humans are, and that they have lifespans. And no, like I'm surprised that he name dropped that because I just recently heard about this idea of the fourth turning, maybe like last month.
You just brought it to my attention today, so I didn't
Yeah,
even know what this guy was talking about before that. So that's
yeah.
awesome.
So I would say, yeah, I mean, yeah, we talked about it. I absolutely think so.
Yeah,
Um,
beautiful.
I even said that like in my pity fuck video about the idea of, you know, democracies become cesspools for like corruption,
Hmm.
and mob rule. Like, and that's what Polybius said. Polybius' cycle
Literally,
was that
yeah.
democracy leads to mob rule. Plato said that.
Plato, yeah.
And of course, what comes out of mob rule is a Napoleon, is a Caesar, is a dude who just shows up and says like, okay, follow me,
A
and
tyrant, for
then
better or
yeah,
worse.
right. Right, a pity fucker, and
Yes,
that might be a good thing or a bad thing. But
yes.
that's what I joke about. I joked about in the pity fuck video on one of the slides was Napoleon has that quote where he says like the crown of France was on the ground and I picked it up with my sword,
Hmm.
and I joked about the crown is a circle, which is like a symbol of like the womb. That's the feminine symbol.
Yeah.
On the ground means she's beat, she's ugly, she's seen better days.
I'm doing this
My
for the greater
sword,
good.
right? My sword is the phallus, and I picked up the crown with my sword. He's saying big girls need love too. That's what
Right.
Napoleon is saying.
Yeah.
Somebody, Lady France was down bad. Somebody had to service her. So, um, oh, great! What a timely question. That's dope.
Very, very love it. Okay, cool. Let's see. Yeah, this one is it's a bit general, but it's something that maybe we can touch on a little bit. What does it mean to be a hero, and how can we apply it to our own lives?
That's this is kind of interesting because I could go. In fact,
Yeah, that's what I'm
I've
saying. You could make it. This could be an episode, but very
I've
quickly, what
had
would you
a
guys say?
because everyone's conception of hero basically now stems from superhero, right? But
Hmm.
I think the actual idea of hero is much more primordial and less
It's Gilgamesh.
moralistic. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Um, it is somebody who can do exceptional things on behalf of their people. That's what a hero is to me. And
Beautiful.
so that be it a warrior, be it an explorer, be it whatever their qualities is, it is
Even like a
striving.
Homer, I look at Homer like a hero because he served
He's a
his
heroic
people.
poet. Yes.
Yes.
I was about to
Um,
say even the great books read for that would be on Heroes and Hero Worship by Thomas Carlyle. He
Hmm.
identifies. I'll grab that real quick.
Please,
Um,
please.
I think that a hero, because you raised a good point, is like morality is like a really weird lens to look at heroism through.
Hmm.
Like they're
Like, is
like
Achilles
if
morally
I was about to
righteous?
say if you read the Iliad with like a modern morality, you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's really like violent and kind
Yeah.
of mean.
Uh-huh. And
But
Hector's the
then
good
that's why I
guy.
love the Odyssey opens by saying like it's sing to me muse of like the man of many turns, like the cunning man. There's this idea of like ambiguity to heroes. Um, but on heroes, hero worship, and the heroic in history, Thomas Carlyle does like a whole breakdown on this, and he identifies several archetypes of the hero. He says the hero as divinity, the hero as prophet, the hero as poet, the hero as priest, the hero as man of letters, the
Mm.
hero as king.
All
And so
archetypes.
all different archetypes of the hero. And so yeah, there's
Skin the cat.
many ways to skin the cat.
or
Yeah.
what's the name of the lion? Heracles.
The Nemean
The
lion.
the,
Yes.
the
Skin the
Nemean
Nemean lion.
lions. Yeah. I loved that connection that you made to Nemean and Nemesis. That was the first time that
Yeah.
had ever occurred to me. Dude, you guys are some of the best friends I've ever had because like you truly changed the way that I see the world. I really appreciate it.
Nice.
Yeah, dude.
That would be good. I'm excited for. Are we allowed to talk about the thing that's going to happen later this year? Has that been talked about?
I've
Oh,
been
I don't
I have been
hinting.
I
I've
have
been telling
I
close
have
friends.
a hint in I have a video coming up for the year of the fire
Okay.
horse.
Okay.
So
I'm going to keep it.
I'm gonna hint at it, but not
Okay.
explicitly. I'm gonna
Let's say very quickly, Harry, Dane, and I have some huge news on a project that we're all sort of working on in collaboration with others, and it's going to be incredible. It's going to be adventurous and necessary. Let's say that for the salvation of humanity. I think. But yeah, it'll come out soon.
soon, relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking, yeah. In the grand scheme, okay.
You can only save the world so fast.
Yeah, I know, guys. Give me a moment, okay? Come on. Let's see. There's, I don't want to hit like all these. Does anybody want to give their favorite Bronze Age? Oh, sorry, really quickly from that last question. What does it mean to be a hero? That one comes from Thinking Lifter at Thinking Lifter. I want to give everybody their shout. This next one is from Thomas Stigler. He says, favorite Bronze Age culture and why? Any Bronze Age ideals?
I have a.
I'm just gonna go with the Achaeans. I'll say the Achaeans.
Nice.
Would you?
Dogfight going on outside.
Sea peoples are up there.
Hey,
Although you can't
so
really,
funny.
It's hard to call them like one people.
Yes, I know, because we wanted to do an entire episode on the sea peoples.
Oh, is that what that was?
Huh?
You said the Ahyawa?
Ahyawa, yeah.
Was that the video we were talking about? I think I posted on my story and you slid up the historical Achilles triggered the Bronze Age collapse.
Yes.
Yeah, dude. Okay, I'm gonna go with that too.
So that served in my video so well. Yes, Pierre Murado.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, dude, that served in my video so well when I was talking about like in parts 2 and 4 of the Proto-Indo-European migration series, because it's one of those things that, like, again, like when we're talking about Troy and like the Bronze Age collapse and stuff, people fucking throw away the fact that Homer was the first historian documenting these things. Everybody thinks it was Herodotus. Homer was doing it for his people. He was historically accurate. He's talking about he was using names that were not anachronistic. He was using names that were accurate for the time period.
Right.
And that's what's so impressive. But yeah, so
can we shout this guy out?
Let's do it. Yeah, please.
This is so there's a video called How the Historical Achilles Triggered the Bronze Age Collapse, Pia Muradu, 1250 BC, posted by Project Glorious. He's got just shy of 5,000 subscribers. 2 months ago, 42,000 views. I know, dude.
5,000 subscribers?
Fantastic video, great graphics. Everybody should go check it out. Super slept on.
Please, guys, go give him a follow. That was incredible. I would have thought that guy had 100.
Link it in the description.
It'll be linked in the description. Yeah. I'll throw up a photo. Dude, I'll blow it up big.
This guy's thumbnails are great. Yeah, this guy looks sick.
Okay, let's see. Dane, do you want to shout your mustache routine? Somebody said, "What's your mustache routine?"
Dude, I've made a video on this before, and I think I'm gonna make another, but it's not it. There is no routine. It's like the Kung Fu Panda frickin' scroll.
Yeah. Nice.
I wake up, I comb it and I trim it.
Nice.
And wash it. But I don't, there's no secret oil, no secret serum, no secret. I just, it just genetically, I'm blessed. My grandfather it's even longer and more out this way.
Nice.
So it's just kind of, it's funny. My dad, it like hit him. My dad can grow a beard, but not the mustache. And then it alternated again. It's like grandfather. It's offset one, but yeah, I can grow that. Nothing here, but
nice.
Yeah, there is no. I don't know about you, but there is no secret for me.
I do use a mustache wax.
Superior.
No, I use a mustache wax. I have to, or else it just like gall gets in my mouth and it doesn't look good. Mine's a little bit more untamed. Yours is just like fucking very elegant. So we'll just leave people with your answer. Because, yeah, I use, it's called, I can't remember. I'll put up a photo of it or something. But, yeah, I use that, comb it through, and then I'm good to go for the rest of the day. Let's see. Top 3 historical figures, asks Mug Maniac 1995. Mug Maniac. This guy probably really enjoyed your mug video.
Mug, fellow mugger. Shout out. Okay, here's another shout out. Guy saw my mug video. I think his profile is called Mog Mugs.
Oh, hell yeah. Bro,
Oh shit! That's
Check that out.
that is gorgeous.
Shout out Mog Mug.
So cool. I'll throw up a big photo of that
Should
too.
should we each do one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's each do one. Go ahead, Harry. You can kick us off.
Mine first. I'm first guy.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, I don't want to be first. Give me
I'll
time.
go first.
Um,
I'll go first, but I'll say Jesus Christ. I think that
Good call.
I mean, like regardless of what you think of the guy, he was so impactful that his message spread throughout the four corners of the earth. We have decided to restructure our calendar around his birth. We've, to my knowledge, never done that for another human being in history. And he also has caused so much of a rift because of the truth that he spoke, in my opinion, that he has sort of created the what would you say? He's created the sort of like standard for what objective moral truth is and what we are sort of trying to, not we, me, but they are trying to
Destroy.
destroy and deter against. Exactly. It's like you either accept that that is the absolute moral truth, or you say that there is none and there can be none. Because if there is one, it's that one. And if you don't like that, then you have to admit that it's not real. And I think that that's incredibly potent and powerful.
Based.
Very based, yeah. So I'm gonna go with Jesus Christ.
I got one now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give Dane a nice huge breath of space to pick his person. I will do damn, we're not gonna want to change my mind. I'm gonna say
You wanted to steal Dane's, you just telepathically heard his, and you're like, "That's a good
there
one."
was a great because then I was thinking of like Raymond Ibrahim has some really cool books about like the Crusades and like some like
Sword and
super sick
Scimitar.
like yeah, sword and scimitar and all that stuff. But I'm gonna do an explorer. I'm gonna do
Ooh.
Percy Harrison Fawcett. Um, he was essentially looking for El Dorado in the Amazon rainforest, like in the early like 1920s, around World War One. So this was sort of like the last vestige of exploration in the world, right? So you had like Ernest Shackleton was doing his expeditions. Percy Fawcett became obsessed with this place. His family motto was "Nec aspera terrent, difficulties be damned."
Interesting.
He was also he crossed paths with Helena Blavatsky, who started the Theosophy School idea.
Love Helena Blavatsky.
So I quoted her, and like she was the one who's like she like talks about Atlantis, and so it's cool to think that a dude 100 years ago was Atlantis pilled. That should be a pill. The Atlantis pill was Atlantis pilled, looking for El Dorado. Kind of vindicated because they found some like pottery shards, or like they found like they started like FLIR mapping stuff and all this other stuff, and um, they found his notes. But long story short, for his like what ended up being his last expedition, his son came with him, and they just disappeared, and nobody ever heard from them ever again.
Dude,
And
what
so,
we need to go back to the age of independent archaeologists.
yeah,
Like, I'm not necessarily
yeah,
happy about the fact that Heinrich Schliemann used dynamite on the site of Troy, but the guy fucking had a dream and he achieved
yeah.
it and he changed the world because of it. I studied history at UCLA and I took this class on ancient Greek art and archaeology, and I remember there were so many times where my professor would be telling us about something that was so cool that we nearly found the tomb of King Philip II of Macedon, and there's another tomb right next to it that has yet to be excavated. I'm all in the back. Why?
Right,
Fucking
right.
politics, because there's limits on, oh, what's allowed to be done. We got to get the permit for this. It's like, we're not building a fucking house, we're trying to find our history.
Right.
Why are you hiding this from us?
Did you hear? I don't know if this is a conspiracy theory, but apparently, like a week or like in the months leading up to the Iraq War,
They found giants.
they found the tomb of Gilgamesh.
Yeah. Yes.
Based.
Nephilim, Anunnaki. This
Based.
is what I'm saying, is like it's just so fucking clownish that we go, oh, you you guys would not understand. There's many politics that go into it. It's like, yeah, whatever, pedophile, fucking whatever.
Right?
Yeah, literally.
Hurts your
Quite
credibility.
literally. Yeah.
Being a kitty fucker hurts your credibility.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say.
yeah, that, yeah, not great on your resume.
No.
Well, it is if you want
Dane,
power.
what's your...
But
yeah, true.
I guess.
I mean, at what cost? At the cost of your immortal soul.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
So who's your guy?
Hard to say, but just to kind of pull a more modern example, since I tend to talk a lot about, more ancient medieval figures. Figure I'd shout out Teddy Roosevelt, because he's someone
Nice.
who isn't so far in history removed from us. He's in our very recent national history, and he's, to me, one of the last great politicians, if you will, someone who was actually a man of action, who actually fought. He was an excellent soldier. With his Rough Riders, he was a lover of nature, which is one of the big things that has been lost in the modern world. I mean,
and we
helped
owe
preserve...
him the national parks system.
Yes, we owe him for that. And just he loved to box. He loved hiking. He just loved all of these physical pursuits, all these intellectual pursuits, and you can kind of see how it manifested in his presidency. And that is something we talk about our elites now, that have lost all kind of physical courage and honor and nobility. It's very hard to have that in a modern political system. And he was one of the last
need to have a
American politicians to actually embody those kind of noble, heroic virtues. So
he crossed paths with Percy Fawcett, because he also did an expedition up the Amazon. I don't know if it was up the Amazon, but he went up one of the rivers in the Amazon, and so he was like contemporary with like Percy Fawcett's expeditions as well.
Very
fun
cool.
fact.
Very good synchronicity.
Cool. Absolutely, and they both believed in Jesus Christ, and that's
it is.
So that's
all
the connection
full
for all
circle.
three. Awesome, guys. That was super cool. Let's see. One thing that we did want to talk about, I remember, Harry, you brought this up months ago, was talking about our 3 most important historical events. But I almost feel like we should save that for part 2, because I feel like we could talk about those entirely. Right?
Yeah.
So that'll be the next episode. What is your preferred Skyrim race? I have only played as the Nord.
I've never played
My
Skyrim.
Skyrim race?
I'm going to be honest.
Nord.
Okay.
Nord.
Moving on. Question for Harry. Sorry guys, I keep doing this. Last question was from Lewis Harris 152. This next question is from Rice J Evil. Question for Harry. Did you ever consider going to art school? I really like your drawings.
No, that was sort of like the drawing stuff was a recent development for me. I studied engineering at Ohio State, and I started drawing. I don't know why. I think for me, like, I like to be able to. I do not like not being able to do things, and I couldn't draw, so I was like, I want to learn how to draw. So started that, and I like it because, again, symbols. You can do things with symbols that you can't do with words.
Correct.
Poetry is the closest you can get to symbolic language, because then you can sort of break words into their bare meaning.
Yeah.
But sometimes,
or you could be Shakespearean and invent new ones.
Right. Which sometimes I'll do. Sometimes I'll like break rules, but I like being able to, if I've got a feeling and words aren't right for it and I can draw it, then I want to draw it. Then and then I also think artistically, you really start doing good stuff if you can draw like a writer or write like a painter, or if you can do anything like something else. That's when you sort of start to cross-pollinate and like infuse and make really good
of
things.
virtues. Yeah.
Right. And I also, and then finally, I like drawing because when I'm looking at a thing and I'm holding the charcoal or the Sharpie or whatever, and I'm looking at my blank piece of paper, I'm realizing like it's literally there. Just put it there. Just like do what you see, because it's just light and shadow. And especially if I'm using just one color, like I'm just using dark. There is this. I often do very poorly, and it sort of like indicts me to like see the world for what it is. Like when you're drawing a face, like you're not drawing a nose. You're drawing light. You're drawing shadow. You're only drawing shadows, right? And so it really makes you like scrutinize the world you're looking at. and I really like that.
I love that.
So yeah,
New perspective, new lens. And I mean, like in the ultimate pursuit of truth, like we need to look at things from all angles, right? Or else you're like the
right,
blind man touching the elephant.
right.
Um,
No, yeah, and then your bias, if you, yeah, your bias will keep you from seeing the truth. Your dirty fingers will keep you from seeing the truth.
yeah. Oh, I loved that. I loved that analogy. That was a good one on the crystal globe.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. um, we can quickly cover this one because I don't have an answer for this. Telemonian Grove asks, have you ever explored astrotheology and the role that it plays in myth, story, and archetypes?
Assuming that's signifying like astrological significance.
Like the alignment
I'm
of
going.
the constellations and whatnot
I
and
get a
sort
lot
of.
of I get a lot of book recs.
Mhm.
Um, I guess I'm going through them. Another one is Hamlet's Mill. This literally says an essay investigating the origins of human knowledge and its transmission through myth. And the whole idea is that all myth serves as a linguistic tool to disseminate astronomical knowledge. Um, and I don't know where the table of contents is, but like for this, I think a cool example is like one, in Ezekiel's visions, or like when you look at the saints, you have like saints. Ezekiel sees creatures, and the saints are personified as a. You've got what? You've got the lion. You've got the eagle, which is the ascendant version of Scorpio.
Mm.
You've got the man, the angel, and you've got, I mean, what's the bull, Taurus, and like those form like the four quadrants of the zodiac, and Christ is in the center of the cross of those. So like zodiacally, that's very significant. What's interesting about people talk about the age of Aquarius, which is coming, like entering the age of Aquarius. And when Christ enters Jerusalem during Passover, he says, look for the cupbearer, look for the man carrying water, which is the symbol of Aquarius, which is like that's why people think that's the end times.
Yeah.
Um, I think a really cool myth
Maybe a new
is
deluge, possibly.
right. A really cool myth is I think it's the Greeks have the story of I think it's Phaethon, the son of one of the gods, I believe, who asks to drive the sun's chariot. So who I guess that'd be Apollo the sun. He has to
Mm.
drive. He asks to drive the chariot, but he's so young and he has no control that he fucks it up, and like his chariot goes too high and then too low, and so it freezes and scorches the earth. And similarly,
Mm. Mm.
there is a extraterrestrial body. I don't know if it's an astro. I don't know what you would classify it as, but it goes from like extreme out of orbit, and then every 12,000, every certain amount of time, it passes by the Earth really quickly and has like huge geological cataclysmic effects.
Mm.
And you see this corroborated in other myths. And so, short answer, yes. And I think it's very significant. And again, I think, if you are a human, like, dude, think about how fragile our information is digitally now.
Yeah.
If there was a flood,
Oh,
we would lose all that shit.
everything.
And so I think that greatly myth is the most powerful thing we have to disseminate knowledge across thousands of years. And so yeah, I'm really interested in how, myth is connected. And so
Yeah.
these are all the books I've talked about today, I have not gotten into yet, but they're on my to-do list among others. And so yeah, for sure.
Beautiful. I also think that just immediately, like, I think God has written all of the answers and has put all objective truth in the stars for us to understand so that we can have something to literally, quite literally, like look upwards towards and see because like we look up and
Yeah.
we can't physically see the figure of God itself, but we can see the fingerprints. And I think that
Yeah.
that's what the constellations are. I think that that's what I think that all of the answers are written in there. And again, it's like any ancient text. It's spiritually encrypted, and you need to sort of like have eyes
Yeah.
to see and ears to hear. But I think that the answers are all there to show us that objective truth does exist on a greater
Yeah.
level, and it's upward.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Let's see. Let's see where. Really quickly, Krog Wong Tong asks, Harry, How is bro such a unit? We need the bulking routine.
If you'll want some real game, Jonas can attest to this.
Mhm.
I lift 2 days a week. I am a firm believer of Mike
Mensers,
Mentzer's high intensity training.
yes.
I do one upper session, one lower session a week. I train one set till failure. And yeah, I work out less than 2 hours a week. And that's what I believe in, that's what I do. I've been thinking about I'd love to post a gym video.
I think people
And
would love
so
that.
because I think it's very easy. So like in terms of training, it's upper lower. Um, I get all my major muscle groups and I hit them as you get more resilient, you can add more volume. But I do once a week, lower once a week. Every day I'm trying to get 10,000 steps. I'm trying to get for myself like 200 grams of protein. I think aiming for um, what is the rule, like 0.7 grams of protein per
Yeah.
pound of body weight. And if you prioritize protein, it's really hard to get any other shitty calories in. And really, that's how I went from being offensive line weight 320 to 240 in the span of like 4 or 5 months.
At 6'4",
And
by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
6'4". So yeah, that's it. Don't overcomplicate it. I tell a lot of my clients, humans survived the ice age. If we couldn't adapt very quickly to stimulus, we all would have died. If you don't need to be in the gym for 3 hours a day, 5 days a week to do that. Your body, if you're doing it right, your body will respond really well.
It's very
You just gotta
intelligent.
train your balls off.
Yeah.
And by training your balls off, I mean just lift heavy. Or not lift heavy, lift intensely. I like to stay in that 6 to 12 rep range because by virtue of it being at least 6 reps, that's a weight you can control reasonably. And once you get to 12 reps, add 10% to the weight, and then now you're back down to like 6 reps and you keep going. So that's it.
Easy. I hope you guys wrote that down because that's the sauce right there.
I'm not as built as Harry, but I do love the upper lower split. It's so easy.
Yeah.
It's fun. I'm a big believer in sometimes less can be more. Yeah, people act like you have to be doing a freaking CrossFit or whatever every day of the week. And it's like, no, you're just hurting yourself. It doesn't have to be that.
Working out that much was fun when I was unemployed, but then I got a job.
That is also true. That is also true.
Yeah.
And also, if you are unemployed or what have you, and you optimize your gym time, then you can do other physical pursuits. You can hike, you can train martial arts, you can play basket. I don't know, whatever you guys might want to do. For muscle gains, you don't have to pour your whole life into the gym.
100%. All right, I did want to just quickly shout, this is not a question, but I did want to say that another person called Prodby Skulls said, you guys should do an Is This Myth Civilization Possible episode, Atlantis, El Dorado, etc., which is essentially what this episode was, so I hope that you have enjoyed this. Next question. This one comes from some of the Olutra Violence asks, do you believe in free will, determinism, fatalism?
What's fatalism?
It's a really good question. I actually don't know off the top of my head.
Fatalism basically was determinism. I might be wrong. I thought fatalism was that your death was already...
I guess this sort of goes into, I don't know what
if you will.
That's exactly correct. I think it is determinism. So I think the question is just free will versus determinism.
I don't know.
I could go on for a long time.
Oh, hold on. Sorry. Determinism versus fatalism. Both are incompatible with free will. Determinism is dependent on causality, while fatalism is not dependent on causality. It is the future is fated or destined. So it seems like determinism plays off of I guess maybe if I had to answer, I would say that I believe more in determinism in the sense that when one thing happens, that causes a chain reaction of other possible events, where fatalism is like the story is already written from the very beginning, like from beginning to end, Genesis to Revelation, there is no changing anything that goes on in between. Whereas I do believe that personally, if I had to, I always look at it as like a video game. I think that sometimes we begin with a sort of like preset of things, and there's a million ways to climb to the peak of the mountain, but you will arrive at the peak. And so the different like sort of routes that you take are like the different checkpoints that you reach. And sometimes there are things that are like potentially fated or destined to happen in your life, but they're only determined by the previous actions that you have consciously taken, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I could go on about the difference between fate and free will for that could be a whole video, honestly.
It could
but
be.
I'm
Yeah. A lot
I'm
of these
very
questions
much a
could be.
believer in that fate is kind of beyond our understanding, in that while we have free will, there are forces outside of our control that are kind of shaping things. Like not to say we're puppets that don't know we're on strings, but
Sure.
I think there are forces and trends across history, across human history, that are orchestrated by powers that are outside of us, and we kind of play a part in that. Now, how we play that part, we have some, as you said, we make certain choices that lead to other certain choices, but I think fate's fundamentally something that we're not capable of fully grasping
Right.
in our state.
What do you think, Harry?
I believe in destiny. I believe I have a destiny. I sort of did a video on this months ago about like I will live forever until I die, where um I believe my death is fixed somewhere, and like before that happens, I can't die, and so I might as well. I want to get as close to death as I can in the meantime, because then I can maximize my life. And I guess that's sort of like the attitude of like Stonewall Jackson. Like it's like it removes fear, and so I believe in that. I also like think like the idea of free will is like just because a force knows what I'm gonna do doesn't mean it feels like free will to me. So like who gives a shit?
Who gives a shit? Exactly. It's
It's
like
my will.
we must live as though, I can't remember which philosopher said it, but we must live as though we have free will, regardless of whether or not it's
100%.
real. I also kind of piggybacking off that, like I'm writing a video on the metaphysics of the Northmen. Have you guys seen that movie?
Yes.
Banger.
Yeah. And I like, not to give away too much, but essentially like he's told from a young age, he's sort of manifesting into existence. He's like, I will avenge you, father. I will kill you. What his uncle's name is, and like I will save you, mother. Yeah. So he's affirming these things to himself. He's manifesting it into existence, and then he's also being sort of like validated by the prophecy of the seer. And so it's like that must come to pass because it has been written into reality from merely an idea. And I think that a lot of times it's like it is fluid in the sense that it could have been anything, but because it was set in stone as something, it must manifest into reality.
Which I'm sure you're like you've seen the thing about like the future prophetic tense, of where you like talk about the future as if it's already past. Yeah.
Yes.
Also, the Northman. I saw the Northman in theaters when I was I think I had just retired from football. I looked at Skarsgård's body and I said, "That's what I want to look like." I made it my background. That was my workout motivation. For however many months it took for me to lose my weight. That movie is so goated. So goated.
So cool. Awesome. Let's see.
Gentlemen, that might have had to have been my last question. I do have a commitment coming up.
You gotta go. Okay.
Yes. So I don't know if I would say I could leave the recording up if you guys wanted to continue with some more questions.
I'm also extremely content. I've probably melted my phone's battery because I've been charging it and it's been going down from 15 to 5%.
Yeah, no worries. I will save the rest of these questions if we want to cover them in the future. We're at 2 hours and 20 minutes, so this is a great place to stop. But Harry, you've been an incredible first guest. Very honored to have you.
Oh, first guest.
Dude, first guest. Hell yeah.
Let's go. Let's go.
And one of the questions even was, how did you guys decide Harry was going to be your first guest? And it was pretty obvious. Like you and I connected over the summer, I believe it was. and we had been talking about trying to do something together for a long time, and like we've had so many great phone calls and FaceTimes back and forth that I'm just like, dude, the world needs to hear this. And now that we finally have a platform for it, like this was the perfect.
It was great. No, because I had so many of these long-winded things that I wanted to get out that I've been storing because I just didn't have the right occasion to. So this has been a perfect manifesto occasion for me to get out my ramblings. So thank you very much.
I think that, of course, it's our pleasure, and I think that you should still turn those into videos if you would like to, because not everybody might see this, and the people who do see this, they'll have a bit of an Easter egg to refer back to. So definitely make that reality.
It's been a pleasure having you on, Harry. I've been getting requests to collaborate with you for very long time, way before even coming on YouTube. So it's great to have you. You're a very smart, well-read person and built like a unit. So it's good to have such friends as these that are so well-spoken and live their philosophy and curious. And I always, whenever Harry has a video, and you too, Jonas, I'll never have thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So I'm always learning something new and gaining a new perspective. It's like, wow, I wouldn't have approached like the pity fuck. I wouldn't have approached thinking of a revolution that way. It never would have crossed my mind. And now it's like, wow, okay, that's a new paradigm for me to add to the repertoire, and that's what it's all about. So
the rising tide raises all ships. Harry, really quickly, tell us where we can find you. Tell us what your socials are, and tell us about anything that you have coming up.
You can find me where the wind whispers in the forest tree. No, I'm kidding.
True though.
H_Miller76 is my, I think, handles for everything. But yeah, I spend the most time probably on Instagram. H_Miller76. And that is me. That is my digital existence.
Beautiful. All of Harry's links will be in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And we will see you guys in the next one.
Peace.
Epic.